What's something your parents refuse to believe? When I was 18 years old, I told my dad that I am moving out. He said, "You are not moving out since you are only 16 years old." I had to show him my driver license that I was indeed 18 years old. That's very funny and very sad at the same time. My mum still thinks Felix Baumgartner could have missed the earth and fell into space when he did that jump in 2012. That not every single person is out to hurt you. Like, my mom literally believes the only reason any given person isn't robbing, upping, murdering you is because they don't think they can get away with it. Yet, it's exhausting. My mom doesn't understand fiber in food. She thinks, for example, kale is a giant vitamin and if you put it in the blender it will cut the nutritious parts into pieces, therefore blenders are bad. I have severe vision problems. I can't drive. I have trouble making out the faces of people, and walking downstairs is a major challenge for me. Almost everyone I know knows this. What they don't know is my parents refuse to accept this. My parents are firmly convinced I'm lazy and just don't want to drive. Apparently I've somehow bribed every optometrist I have ever gone to enjoy being left out of social events because I would need someone to pick me up, and love spending money on taxes. I'm now the caretaker of both of them, and as recently as 4 weeks ago my father flipped out on me about how I should stop faking and get a dang license. Stab them in the eyes. But you could see 5 minutes ago. Faker. That I'm straight. Not every friend of mine that is a girl is my girlfriend. That Facebook isn't a reliable source of news and everything ever posted shouldn't be treated like the gospel. But they put white borders with black text above and below the source video. It has to be true. My mother thinks that vodka has no smell, and if she drinks it, no one will be able to tell. My father thinks that if he finds the magical combination of words and keeps trying, I will agree to see my mother again. That I'm going to move out as soon as I graduate college. I think my mom thinks we're going to be living together forever. I am an international student in the US. My mom has repeatedly told me that my grandmother is gonna come with me once I become a junior to cook clean because she cannot trust me to survive alone. Also that they are gonna move in with me once I get a job straight out of college. I have lived in a boarding school since I was 10. I also spent a month alone backpacking through Europe. My dad is in his mid-60s. He's spent the last 6 months in Thailand working with this aging Thai rock star Lam Morrison. Lam was like a guitar god in Thailand in the 70s, but the dude is just really old now. Well, my dad has been spending all this time and effort to have this glorious rock concert in the United States. His plan is to bring Lam Morrison to America and take him on tour, but somehow in my dad's mind he thinks that they are going to be selling out Staples Center and Madison Square Garden. He's delusional and he's sinking his time and money into this guy, and there just aren't going to be the returns that he's hoping for. I love him and I know that he's still trying to stay relevant, but I don't see how bringing this old Thai rock star to the United States is going to be successful by any standard. Old rock stars are lucky if they are able to get steady work in a Vegas hotel off the strip. An aging Thai rock star who nobody has ever heard of sounds like a disaster. I've tried to talk to my dad and temper his expectations, but he refuses to believe that the Lam Morrison 2016 US tour will be anything but a smashing success. Write a best-selling book about your experience of his experience. It kind of feels like a quirky film setup, kind of similar to Little Miss Sunshine or something. My dad believes mouthwash with fluoride in it is a hallucinogen when using it as normal BTW. If you are hungry for something, it is because your body specifically needs that food. Denying it means you are depriving your body, so you should fulfill that need now. So crave potato chips? Going for crunchy salty kale chips won't cut it. You specifically need kale. Craving chocolate chip cookies? Better go to the store now, lest you die of a chocolate chip imbalance. My dad will late night drive to McDonald's because he craves fries and a chocolate shake. Ergo must have it now. Obesity is an issue that side of my family. My parents didn't believe that we couldn't have kids. I tried to explain that my wife had to stop her medication in order to avoid serious birth defects. Stopping the meds was impossible while working, so she would have to quit. Quitting would mean we wouldn't be able to keep paying our bills, so the banks would come and take our house and cars and stuff. But no, we didn't have kids yet because we were too selfish to give them grandkids. Now that my career is in a good place and we paid down our debt some, we are finally pregnant. My mom's response is, "See, you can afford kids, it's only a pity you waited so long." That going door to door to random companies with your resume will get you a job. I even did it at least 4 times just to prove them wrong. No one wants your crap. Also, no, that internet-based company doesn't just have a phone number listed on their website for random people to call and inquire about jobs. Oh yes, I had gotten from people who have not applied for a job since 1980, one of whom was a SAM for several decades and counting, that I should try harder and follow up. Never mind that most job postings specifically tell you not to contact them further after applying. Dinosaurs. I'm not even kidding. My mom doesn't believe in dinosaurs. There's no way dinosaurs could have existed because the earth hasn't existed for that long. I majored in molecular biology in college. I gave up the fight a long time ago. Oh. That I might be sexually active. Apparently, my BF, who I have been dating for almost 2 years, came to visit me in college recently. My mom appears to be under the impression that he was sleeping in my sleeping bag on the floor. She probably knows, and she probably doesn't approve, but she doesn't think you'll do anything about it if she brings it up, so she pretends it's not happening. My dad believes that we've never been to space and much less landed on the moon. Something to do with radiation and how they're all lying to us. He also believes the earth is flat, so there's that. That a chicken can lay an egg without there being a rooster involved. It's been brought up about 10 times now and she still doesn't get it. Tell her it is a chicken, period. That going to a doctor is a better idea than going to some alternative medicine quack. My super Christian grandma was talking about using essential oils to cure cancer. I despise this, because people will use just essential oil and die painfully from treatable cancer. So just said, I don't know. Essential oils just feel too pagan for me. Shut her down. My father doesn't believe in kiwi fruit, which is a shame because they need all the support they can get. Seriously though, I ate some at home once and he looked at me confused. The heck are you eating? Kiwi fruit? Thought I'd buy some. Been a while since I did. Then later that same day, I hear him on the phone with his girlfriend. Yeah, Adafaman was eating some kiwi fruit. Is that how you pronounce it? No, I don't know what the. Really? That doesn't sound right to me. The man is 60 and doesn't believe in a common type of fruit. There's no doubt in my mind that my parents are smart and only want the best for me, but the age where school, instant success in your field is over. I'm in a good position now, but geez, when it took me 3 months to find a job out of college they were baffled and tried convincing me to go through more school immediately because something wasn't right. That I'm old enough to understand. Whenever we get into a discussion about our political opinions or whatever they always finish it with "you'll understand when you're older." Wouldn't bother me if I wasn't an adult. They call it talking back. We call it explaining. My parents will start shouting in the middle of a conversation, but whenever I raise my voice a tiny bit they'll tell me to stop shouting, because that won't make me right. No, I'm shouting because you won't let me explain and ignore everything I say. That the Beatles made use of LSD. Mom refuses to believe that magnet therapy is a scam and she is just wasting her money. Inflation. Yes dad, that 10k you earned right out of college in 1972 is equal to roughly 56k now. Try finding that right out of college now. That I can't pause my game right away. Privacy. Here's something that happened last Christmas. No, Mom, I wasn't masturbating in the bathroom, not that that's any of your business. I was taking a dump. You don't get to unlock the bathroom door to check up on me like that. This is why I, as a 30-something, don't visit my parents very often. That my door should be closed if that is how they found it. My GF's parents, there weren't any gay people when we were growing up. One was a huge Queen fan and the other a big Elton John fan. That you don't get a cold by just feeling cold. Or how about standing in the rain causes colds? Yes, because I catch a cold every day from taking a shower. My mom refuses to believe that Blu-ray is better than DVD. She thinks it's a conspiracy that was created by movie companies to get people to buy the same movie twice. I guess one perk of this is that I only have to buy her the DVD version of a movie, which is usually cheaper. It's all about eyesight. Who needs better quality if they cannot see better? That there's a South America. From southern Indiana as a bit of backing to this, my father refuses to believe that anyone of any other religion besides Christianity can be a good person, and they're all out to kill Americans according to him. My mother refuses to believe that you can't get malware or other types of viruses without letting them into your computer in the first place. She told me once not to leave the computer unattended because it would give anyone access to her credit card information. So I'm 16 sitting in the backseat of my parents' car with my grandma. My parents are in the front seat. We're driving home from the big city after a nice meal out. We make good time through the traffic, and my sweet, dear grandmother says it was fast. I thought it'd be harder than a boner to get through all that traffic. My 16-year-old brain kind of processed what she'd said, and I was just about to burst into hysterical laughter when I noticed my parents aren't reacting at all. They're both just sitting there, slouched in their seats, looking out the window. Grandma has also returned to looking out the window, so I basically shoved my fist in my mouth to stop my laughter until Granny is safe in the house, and then I burst out with a "my god, I'll hear what Grandma said." They both give me this totally blank stare, and when I tell them what she said they both get all offended and huffy. All Grandma would never say that, lion. Stop being obscene. I swear to God that B said harder than a boner. Nobody believes me, man. My mum refuses to believe the Asimo robot isn't a little man in a suit. It's awful what they make that poor man do. My mother refuses to believe that there are people working 2 or 3 jobs in America to keep themselves, and many times their families, afloat, but still have financial difficulties. Evolution. I'm a biologist and working towards my master's in ecology and evolution. We fight a lot. My mom donates large sums of money to John Hagee and, honest to God, pun intended, believes that her money is going to a good cause and not to buy some douchebag televangelist a private jet, luxury cars and massive homes. With the money she has given this guy in the past year, she could have fed, clothed and schooled a small African nation. That if you're a registered organ donor, doctors aren't going to let you die, kill you in order to harvest your organs. That things like the military, economy and market finances work much differently on how they were in Soviet times. Also that using a PC can teach you a lot of different things, a lot more than schools in their time ever could, like learning how to speak and write in English, for example. My mother doesn't seem to comprehend this, but I guess I can't blame her. She grew up not only in a different time, but completely different system and world. That I threw a ton of parties in high school. She caught me twice. I probably threw 50. No, I always caught you. You never did that, lol. My mom told a lot of people that she caught me trying a cigarette in our backyard, and she was super cool about it because she understood my curiosity. I've never tried a cigarette in my life. She's mildly insane. My parents refuse to believe that my last name is hyphenated or that it's an inconvenience to me when they write me a check using my husband's last name only. Every time I hear the excuse, "Oh, it's okay. The bank won't mind. Next time I book a flight for her, I should use her maiden name." "Oh, it's okay, Mom. The Tsar won't care." That I don't have a boyfriend. I'm not even excessively beautiful and socialized, so either in the 80s every single teenage girl had a boyfriend, or it's their way of telling me I'm not ugly. Parents who didn't tell their so why they named their child after somebody. What is your secret? My uncle wanted to name his kids after Star Wars characters. My aunt flat out refused. My cousins' names are Ben and Luke. It's treason. Then, he should have named them the Senate and the Senate. My mother used to complain that her father had named her Irene after the song Goodnight Irene. That's what her parents always told her, and she just really hated it for some reason. When my grandpa was in his 80s I told him that my mom hates her name because of that and he just said, "Oh, that was a joke. She's named after my aunt." Didn't I tell her? Oops. My dad told me I was named after an actor. My mom's reaction was, "No, you weren't. You were named after a child I worked with in the cancer ward." Knowing my dad, he probably knew this and just forgot, or just never thought to ask why my mom picked my name. My dad planned out to have 5 children that have the first letters in order from eldest to the youngest that spells out NERDS, so if we ever said something to him he'd say, "Shut up, you nerds." I was almost named Richard James, after my grandfather's. My dad decided I had to be named after him and his grandfather instead though. I'll never forgive him. I could have been Rick James. I could have been Rick James. FTFY. My dad convinced my mom to give me the middle name I have today. Turns out it is his high school sweetheart's middle name. My parents got divorced when I was 4 and my dad has been happily married to this HS sweetheart for years now. Don't particularly love it, but now I know where my namesake is from. Not a parent or and so, but when I was 10 my auntie told me she was having twins and asked what she should name them. And of course being a 10-year-old girl I said Zach and Cody. She liked Zach but not Cody, and now my cousin is 11 and still doesn't know he was named after a stupid Disney show. Or the fact that a 10-year-old named him. My parents never found out my gender before I was born and was convinced I was going to be a boy, so they had a boy's name picked out. Well, when I popped out, they were like, "Oh crap." According to my dad, my mum looked up in a drug daze and asked the midwife what her first name was. My mum then responds, "Okay, we'll use that," and that is how I got my name, named after literally the first person my mum saw after I was born. Thankfully the midwife had a nice name. I like the idea that the woman who helped delivering you into this world was honored that way. What the heck is up with people naming their children after their ex-lovers? That's like half the replies in this thread. Some people really can't get over their past flings, I guess. Yeah, I find this so weird. My mum wanted to call me Zoe but my dad stopped her as Zoe was his ex-girlfriend's name, which seems like a far more logical response than most of these. We chose our son's middle name to honor my grandfather. Then about 3 years later I discovered my grandpa had set up a secret camera in his bathroom to catch my wife undressing. Basically, my son doesn't even know he has a great grandpa, let alone that he was named after him. Whoa, that's just messed up. Had a high school history teacher tell us about a month after his 3rd child was born that he was in terrible trouble with his wife. His name was Ford White and his kids were Taylor, Madison and Jackson. Our names very similar. Apparently it wasn't until their newborn was officially named, and from our understanding, the last kid they wanted, did he tell his wife how excited he was to have 4 presidents in the White House. That is the ultimate dad joke. He was playing the long game there. I lived a very sheltered homeschooled life. I lived in the rural Midwest, so I rarely had opportunities to make friends. I went into chat rooms sometimes and I made friends with a guy my age who helped me develop social skills from talking on the phone, late 90s, and he also helped me control my anxiety and depression. I don't know where he is now, but I named my son after him. My son was a bit of a surprise, not in the traditional sense, but he was adopted. Our adoption agency called us one summer morning and told us that there was a baby boy born at the hospital and his birth mom wanted to place him for adoption. We agreed to the adoption and rushed to the hospital to meet him. We had to come up with a name and we both rattled off a bunch. I suggested a lot of superhero names because I like superheroes and because our son was born with a heart defect. I thought a superhero name would suit him. My wife shot most of them down until I suggested Logan. She was like, "I like it and it's not after a superhero. Let's go with Logan." I waited a long time to tell her about Wolverine. And yes, I know it isn't his real name. She was a little mad. The name kind of blew up in popularity after that. He'll be 13 this summer, but I still like it and thinks it's a cool name. The best way you should have revealed was to take her out to see Logan. No matter what my mom says, my brother is named Tom, because I recommended it, as I loved Tom and Jerry as a 6-year-old. My ex-lover named his daughter after me. We had a fling. but I broke it off when he confessed he was married and his wife was pregnant. It was not an open marriage. We work in a similar industry, so imagine my surprise when he brought his daughter into a staff reunion a couple years later and introduced her as my name. The other staff laughed and joked, "Hey, that's the same name as Fink's cat. Ha ha ha, yeah. That's actually creepy." My dad didn't tell my mom he named me after a little girl he used to babysit that was enamored with him and died of cancer before she turned 13. I'm realizing now I was about 13 when he told me because it was just after my parents divorced. Jeez, Dad. That's actually very sweet. My geography prof named his kid after Archer, the Marvel character. I swear to God I had something for this. Apparently, my father talked my mother into naming her only daughter Earth Angel, after some leggy woman he met in Montreal when he was 18. She told me, and I asked him, on his deathbed, why he named me this, and he got really weird. I said, "Mom already told me, I just want you to say it. I really want to understand what this name means, and why you named me this." He never gave me a reason. On the plus side, most people ask me if my parents named me after Beyoncé's sister, even though I think I'm 2 years older than her. Not me, but a college friend was named Donna. Everyone assumed she was named after her father, Don. Turns out that Din had a girlfriend in high school he was still hung up on years later. Girlfriend's name was Donna, a little too cutesy, but it also blew up the parents' marriage. My dad named me after a girl he had a crush on in high school, but for whatever reason my mom was totally cool with it. Mine is kinda opposite. I was named after my father. I am the 4th in a row. My mother wanted to name me after her high school sweetheart. My great-grandfather's dying wish when mom was pregnant with me was that the name continues. She decided to honor his request. Ironic thing is my father split when I was 4. Mom ended up with the man I originally was supposed to be named after 40 years later. Reading this thread has shown me that this is really common. Till if you name your kid after an old GFBF, you're going to split up. When I was 6 or 7 I was staying with my aunt during the summer. She was pregnant but they didn't know if it was going to be a girl or a boy yet. They were brainstorming names and I came up with Ariel if it was a girl or Eric if it was a boy. Yes, I had just watched Little Mermaid, unbeknownst to my aunt. So, yeah, my cousin is named after the prince in Little Mermaid. My daughter was named after another man my ex shacked up with for a few years and then broke it off with him. A fact my ex regularly reminds me of to try and hurt me. So yeah, I would have rather gone on believing she was named after me. We don't have a kid yet, but me and my husband were discussing possible baby names. He says a boy has to have an A name, as it's a family tradition. I say Anders. He says what? Number. That's that Dragon Age character you like so dang much. Pick something else. I'm not naming my kid after a video game. Okay. How about Alistair? We can call him Al. It's kinda classic. I like it. Yeah, Alistair. What's it from? Oh, just a name I always liked. Alistair is also a Dragon Age character, just one he doesn't know about it. Guy I work with named Alistair goes by Alfie. I named my little brother. He's named after MG Friend's dog. My parents don't know. Not a parent, but my dad told me about it later in life. The day I was born my parents had my first and last name figured out, but not my middle name. My first initial is T, my last is C. When they were forced by doctors to choose my middle name my dad casually suggested Logan and my mom went with it. My initials are now TLC. Everyone thinks I named my daughter after the Disney princess, Aurora, from Sleeping Beauty. I named her after the Aurora Borealis Australis. It's always been a dream of mine to see them. Doesn't hurt though that in the movie I have the same name as the queen. I didn't even know she had a name until my kid was 5 years old. But I suppose it's just a little secret between my daughter and I that she's named after a natural phenomenon. My cousin's actual name is Aurora Borealis. She was conceived under it. I think it's kinda awesome actually. My uncle named his daughter Miraucha after a place in Spain where he cheated on the girl's mother. She never knew. He was a jerk. I've got 2. Around 10 years ago my mom got drunk and told MW that I was named after an ex-boyfriend she had who refused to marry her. Pretty sure my dad was unaware of this. My stepmother had a name very similar to my mom's, so changed her name to the same spelling as my mom before she married my dad. The more I think about both situations, the more I realize how messed up my family was. The stepmom one is really fricked up. Sort of the opposite. My daughter's name is Rose. We picked the name and got super attached to it before remembering my sister-in-law's middle name is Rose. She cried and hugged us when we told her the name, thanking us for naming our daughter after her. We'll go with it, explaining to her that we simply like 4-letter, 1-syllable names doesn't have the same ring to it. Sort of, but not quite what the OP asked for. I inadvertently named my daughter after a character from a game that I love. I wanted an old Scots name for my daughter, and after much back and forth we settled on Elspeth. This was in 2000, and several years later a character was introduced to a game I played with the same name. On the birthday after that I introduced my wife to the name from the game and had to convince her that it wasn't a thing when she was born. I was eventually able to prove it to her and she stopped bringing it up. Oliver Newton, a series by Isabel Carmody, features a main character called Elspeth. Not a kid, but a dog. We got a Keeshon puppy several years ago. In case you're not familiar with the breed, Keeshonts have black, white, and grey fur. When we were discussing names, I suggested Shadow. My wife liked it. One day a couple of years later my daughter asked how Shadow got his name. I answered that he was named for Shadowfax from the Lord of the Rings. My wife overheard and gave me the evil eye. I named my dog Wally after my parents' next door neighbor. The lady across the street asked me point blank if I named my pup after him, which I admitted. He doesn't know and is confused as we yell his name in the yard. Our first son was named Jake since we just liked the name. When our second son was born, the wife chose Eddie and I thought, Dark Tower. That's cool. Big fan. Now our third son will be born in a few weeks and randomly she says I've always liked the name Roland. So I internally squee and say to myself it's Carswell. Externally I say yeah, that's alright I suppose. Just scrolling to see if I can find your wife's response to this thread. I'd never tell my husband, but I'm a huge Dark Tower fan. Creed from The Office. So, I'm actually the kid. My dad used to claim that I was named after a fairly famous old school country singer, whose name is only kind of like mine, and who I've never heard my dad listen to. I recently reconnected with my mom, and mentioned it to her at one point. She was very confused. Turns out I was actually named after the woman that introduced me parents in the core. I'll still always be fond of that country singer though. My grandfather didn't get to name all of his children the way he wanted. He wanted to name his youngest son after his favorite comic book character, Flash Gordon, which would have been fine I suppose, had their last name not been Light. Grandma decided that poor Flashlight would never be, and he got a perfectly normal name instead. My parents told me why, but it's kind of a depressing story, so I don't go around telling people specifics other than I'm named after my aunt. But the reason is because while my mom was 7 months pregnant with me, my dad went mental and my mom left the house and went to stay with her family while she contemplated divorcing him. She had a 2-year-old and was pregnant with me at the time. My dad never disclosed his mental health history prior to marrying my mom, and this was the first time she had to deal with his bipolar illness. My dad was off cheating, spending money recklessly, and being an overall butthole. My aunt was in high school, maybe like 15-16 years old at the time. She's the youngest of 5 kids and my mom is the oldest. So instead of my mom being 7 months pregnant and sleeping on a couch or on the floor, my aunt gave my mom her bed for however long she stayed there, and that's why I'm named after her. Your aunt sounds like a very sweet lady. My ex-wife hated Star Trek. If she was home I wasn't allowed to watch it, partially to get back at her and partially cause I like the name. My ninja snuck in a Star Trek name for my son's middle name. Fast forward like 3 years and a stranger says, upon hearing his name, just like so and so from Star Trek, my wife's eyes got huge and she started to fine and I knew the jig was up, so I just laughed and said yes. I was rolling laughing, and as happy and ecstatic as I was, she was equally pee off, especially since it was way too late to change his name. We're not together anymore and she's not even allowed to see the kids right now. She cooked them in her house with our kids there. Haha, Sue. I was the product of this happening. My dad named me after a girl he was infatuated with in high school. His claim was, she was one of the nicest, most beautiful girls, who stood up for everyone and was just one of those golden beings. My dad was and always has been a total nerd. Anyways, my name is beautiful and unique, and otherwise my mom wanted to make me Dana. Thanks for not letting that happen, Dad. You could have been named after a fictional FBI woman instead of a real person. My dad wanted to name me after Star Wars so bad, but knew my mom would never go for that reasoning. So he casually started dropping names from the Bible until he landed on Luke and made her think it was her idea. My mom says I'm named after the book of Luke. My dad says he wishes he had more time to talk her into Skywalker as my middle name. Big Bruce Campbell fan. Of course, calling any of our kids Bruce was out of the question. I was told that before our first son was born. Ash was out of the question. One of the name that made the list for our second son was Samuel, and that was a time where Burn Notice was still on TV. Samuel was about 6 months old when she made the connection that Bruce character in Burn Notice was named Samuel Sam Axe in the show. I love the name Ash for a boy. My ex had a laundry list of names I wasn't allowed for boys, and he demanded we go with Amy for a girl with no exceptions. He disallowed my first male choice, Alex, for no real reason, banned James because he had a gay cousin with that name. Eventually I got fed up, and when I went to my scan after he cheated on me and broke up with me the same day, I found out it was a boy and didn't tell him so he wouldn't be about letting him pick a name. I casually dropped John into conversation as an option and he didn't mind it. When I was a teenager I was madly and obviously unrequited love with a gay classmate named John. My ex is a raging homophobe, and if he knew his son was named after a gay person he'd flip his lid. It makes me happy to think of how much it would pee him off if he knew, while also being a nice-ish story to tell my son if he ever asks. My granddad's name is Richard surname. My dad's name is Michael Richard surname and my name is James Michael Richard surname. My kid's name is going to be first name James Michael surname. Obligatory, not a parent, but a child. I was raised by my dad and stepmom and didn't really know my real mom until I was a teenager. My grandma always told me I was named after Grace Kelly, which was cool because she was beautiful, elegant, and a real life princess. Years later I find out I was really named after the bar my parents met at, not beautiful or elegant. My uncle did this and almost got away with it. He and most of the rest of my family are huge Manchester United fans. He wanted to name his son after a famous Man U player, past or present, such as Eric Cantona, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, etc. However, his girlfriend is not a football fan and was having none of it, so my uncle got sneaky. This was 2012, and he picked a relatively obscure name and player, Raphael, for his son. After his son was born, we all called him Raphael for the first few months, until his girlfriend happened to walk by a TV where a match was playing. She usually ignores them and heard his name and saw him on the pitch. Now 5 years old, my little cousin goes by his middle name instead. My dad named me after his girlfriend at the time. My dad says mom knew about my namesake. Mom says she did not, until after the fact, and dad was cheating with her. Not sure which is telling the truth. My parents were married and poly, but there was still a lot of cheating by both of them, so yeah, either side of the story is likely lol. In elementary school I had the biggest crush on the cool kid in school. I named everything his name. Every character ever that I had to pick a name for while gaming was his name. I gave my firstborn son his name. BF at the time just thought I really loved the name and I never told anyone. Probably a good thing because the guy's mugshot was just circulating around on FB for scamming people, stealing and begging for money. Oh crap, that last part sounds like someone from the Washington area. Don't know if the guy was popular, but we had common friends. But he was begging for money from people he knew, friend of friend, and eventually everyone caught on. Not me, but a guy I met in 8 had an affair with a woman there. He gets out and goes home, gets his fiancée pregnant and names his daughter after the woman he had an affair with. I feel bad for his fiancée, but I've stayed out of it since we weren't really friends and hardly knew each other. Serious, people of Reddit that didn't want a child and are parents now. How's your life now? My husband and I never wanted kids. In fact, 2 months before we got married in 2016, I got my tubes tied, and I still have an IUD, so nothing's getting through there. Well, crap happens, and a month and a half after my wedding, my severely mentally ill sister asked me to pick her 5-year-old up, and basically never came back for her. My husband and I went to court to get custody of her, and now we have a happy, well-adjusted 7-year-old. I still struggle with it at times. My husband and I had some pretty neat plans for our future, so now we've got to try to figure out how we can make it work with a kid in the picture. I also have severe depression, so sometimes it's hard to get up and take her to school and stuff like that, but we've got a lot of support between my husband, my mom, my younger sister, and my husband's family, so it all works out. In the end, I'm honestly just grateful that my kid is no longer being abused or neglected, and that thought alone really helps me in coming to terms with the fact that my life isn't going the way I planned it. My wife took legal custody of her son's 1-year-old daughter when he got sent to prison. We had been together 7 years but only been married around 1. She did this without discussing with me, just kept her one day and she's still here. I don't have any kids of my own. Doing that without my input has really affected our relationship. It's been 10 years now and my wife and her granddaughter fight constantly. She was spoiled bad by all the blood relatives and now runs the roost. It has made being at home very tense. I am 60 years old now and always thought I would have a nice quiet home to be comfortable in. So to answer the question, life now is not as good as it was before this all happened. It's okay. I have 2 now. One 8 and the other is 1. The 8-year-old is hilariously weird and the 1-year-old is showing that she also can be. It's freaking hard. I have no idea what I'm actually doing. I know I'm not the best mother, but I'm okay with it because I know I'm doing my best. I have spent many years working very hard to do it right. By that I mean better than my parents. Educational support, healthy emotional contact, life skills, etc. There have been many challenges to all those things. I'm very tired, and as I get closer to the sort of finish line of college graduation, I find I have far less patience and am filled with regret for the life I had imagined. On the one hand, a lot of my dissatisfaction with how life has turned out has to do with my partner. They really wanted children, but then didn't step up to fill the role of parent. On the other hand, I could have sought out a better partner if I wasn't burdened with the job of raising kids. I have a deep commitment to finishing. I would never be one of those walk-away parents. I really wanted to have satisfying work and travel, and that's not how it turned out. I've made my kid's life very nice, and I'm hoping there is time left to get pleasure in the next phase of my life. I do have this impression that people that don't want kids are the ones who cares the most about important aspects of it, like emotional support and a proper education, while people who want kids feels like they just want a doll that will love and amuse them. I feel pretty isolated right now. She's only 8 months old and I'm on maternity leave. My husband works a lot, so some days it's just the 2 of us. She's cool though, pretty funny kid and very cheeky. In regards to life, it hasn't really changed much other than being a stay-at-home mum for the first year. We love sleeping, so we do a lot of that. Well, the sleeping part sounds nice, but I understand how that could get a bit lonely. I resented my wife for not following the plan and aborting the pregnancy. I carried that weight for a long time. I've grown to love my daughter very much. We have also since had 2 more, only the last of which was planned. I love them all. I love my wife. The pain my resentment caused though reverberates in my marriage today. I will most likely be divorced this year. We've built such a great life for the kids, but along the way I lost my wife. There is nothing I wouldn't give to take back my butthole comments and crappy attitude all those years ago. Tell her this. It may mean the world to her. I have an in-law who married a lady who didn't want kids. He pressured her into having kids anyhow. She got pregnant with twins. The twins were born with disabilities. He killed himself when they were 2 years old. This is the most fricked up that poor woman. My daughter was born mentally disabled. I always tell myself it could be worse, that there are kids who just shake back and forth in wheelchairs. Thing is, she is happy now but has no concept of death, and I can only imagine what it will be like when her mother and I are gone. She will be institutionalized and abused probably. Crappy. Kiddo's mum fled across the country, breaking a restraining order, after she got her support order placed against me. I wasn't ready to support myself, let alone help support a kid. She's been physically shamed by her uncle and probably her mother, and it's been difficult at best to have the uncle thrown into prison. The process has been going on for about 2 years now. She's told me she wants to live with me. I don't blame her, but right now, I'm homeless, in so much school debt that I'll probably die with it, and really just struggling to keep myself going. As bad as it seems at times, it gets better. You'll pull through. I wish the best for you and your daughter. 6 years later, financially recovering, her bills from having her wiped out our savings. Then we couldn't recover since we were throwing $800 a month to daycare, diapers, formula, missed kid stuff on top of day-to-day life. She started school, so daycare is much cheaper now. That alone is getting us out of the hole. Finances are the reason my husband got a vasectomy. We never ever want to be that tight budget-wise again, ever. Outside of that, she's awesome, and right now she's playing Sonic on her tablet. I literally just booked a vasectomy based on your comment. Thank you. I always said I'd rather have herpes than have a kid. Well, I ended up with a kid from a girl that was just a frick buddy. I begged her to get an abortion. I offered to pay for the entire thing and take care of her afterwards. She refused my offer, and as she got further into her pregnancy, she asked me if she thought we should try to be together for the baby. My father got married twice because he knocked up someone and neither marriage worked out, so I said no because that's how people end up miserable. Fast forward 8 years later. I couldn't imagine my life without this beautiful little girl that's going to jump into my bed and beg me for an egg sandwich any second now. It wasn't until after we were married that my wife decided she wanted a baby. Instincts, I suppose. I did not want a child, ever, but given her persistence I felt like I needed to choose between spending the rest of my life being the one who took that away from her, or take on the burden myself and go for it. Well, they say it changes everything and it's the greatest magical experience. What they don't tell you is that you trade everything for it. Sure, life carries on, but every moment of every day is defined by your child's needs. Want to stay up late? You'll pay for it in the morning. Long day at work? Hello, 2 hours of cooking and cleaning. What would you like to do this weekend? Doesn't matter, you don't have time. Finally got ahead financially? Well, enjoy dumping $12k a year into 4 days a week of daycare. Oh boy, got a sitter for date night. Still gotta get up at 6 AM, so don't have too much fun. We are mid-30s, legitimate middle class. We took on zero debt for the medical costs, all saved and planned in the years prior. We have an affordable home, new cars, etc., etc. On the surface it's a perfect scenario, and my daughter is so smart and beautiful, but I hate waking up every flipping day. Now she's awake after less than an hour of her only nap of the day. Game over. And I get crazed stares and endless questions when I say I don't want kids. Great, I got knocked up at 19, had him at 20. I was with his dad for 4 years at that point, so it wasn't like I got knocked up to some random dude. I went to an abortion clinic. My so went with me, although he was totally against it, and it was a known fact that we would be breaking up when I chose to abort this child. When they started telling me details of how it worked, I broke down and freaked out and left. I absolutely couldn't do that. In retrospect, I was so against kids because my mom and dad didn't start having kids until they were 28/29, so in some way I felt that I had failed my parents. Although I had graduated high school with 3.8 GPA, was in college, had my own place and a full-time job, and had been with the father for years. Anyhow, I decided to just suck it up and have a baby. The whole pregnancy I wouldn't refer to him as a baby. It was a monster growing inside me. I was not happy about the idea of having a baby. I didn't tell anyone until they asked. 5/6 months. and I openly would tell people that I wasn't excited and I didn't understand how anyone could be excited for a kid etc etc. After having my son, when he was about 2, my mom told me that her and my sister were worried that I was going to give birth then take off and leave the baby with my well, I had that baby in December of 2009, and honestly life is great. I did fall in love as soon as I saw him. There was no awkward stage at all. I've been a caring and attentive mother. I'm human and I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to give the illusion that I am. Since he was born, it's like this weird instinct kicked in, and as soon as I started hanging out with him I was totally consumed by this amazing loving feeling. It's like I was so worried about having to take care of another human being and how needy babies are, but really when he needed stuff it was such a good feeling to be the one to give it to him. It's weird. So weird. Like all of a sudden my biggest fear is anything happening to this tiny little baby that just a few days, weeks etc. ago was in my womb, and I was calling him a monster. Weird. I love him. I'm happy everything worked out like it did. It made me totally open to unconditional love, and I truly believe it has changed me for the better as a human. He's the best. I did eventually stop dating his dad 4 years later, but we get along great and I like my son's stepmom and his dad likes my everything is great. It turned out okay. I hope I didn't ramble too much. Also, just because it worked out for me doesn't mean it's the same for everyone. My son just turned 17. After his birthday dinner tonight he was yelling and screaming at me and calling me names, then throwing stuff in my face that he remembers. Stuff his abusive rapist of a dad has always told him. Lies. From when he was a kid. I struggle to survive and wish to this day I'd never had him. He's always been a little butthole. So, that pretty much sums it up. I'm sorry. I miss sleeping in, but I'm not as suicidal anymore because it's as if he's filled this void and I can feel something again. Love my son. My daughter is the only reason I'm still alive. I don't have much hope for my future, but I'll be damned if I don't give her a good one. I never wanted children. I knew I didn't. However, that's not the way my life turned out. My daughter is 17 now and I'm 37. She knows I love her and I've told her that if I had to go back I would make all the same choices because it meant she would live. Now to answer your question, I would describe my life as garbage, but I don't think it's related to my daughter's existence. I became a mom of a born child for the first time just before my 40th birthday, and I totally get and support people who don't want to have children. There's nothing wrong with you if you don't want to be a parent. Don't do it. Before I became a mom, I always knew that I didn't want any kids. I was raised in an abusive, neglectful home by parents who clearly didn't like kids or being parents, and it never looked like any dang fun to me. I terminated an unplanned pregnancy when I was 20 and another one when I was 22. I married a man when I was 29 who already had children, and I was content with being a part-time stepmother. After 2 years of marriage, he asked me to go off birth control and see what happened, and I agreed. Well, nothing happened for 8 years, even though we had a very active private life, and I was sure it was because I had had those dastardly abortions and I accepted it as a just punishment. Then, his kids were grown and we were done paying child support and bought a Harley Davidson and were going to have a great time. I asked my hubby to have a vasectomy, and he agreed, but procrastinated and I didn't nag him. On my 39th birthday, I know due to math, he knocked me up. I was totally freaked out and seriously considered another abortion, but only for a few minutes, literally. After we talked it over, hubby and I chose to continue and become new parents at age 40 and 44. Of course, it hasn't been all magical, but the change in perspective was profound and, lucky for me, a beautiful one. I was fortunate to be able to stay home with my son for a few years and it was a wonderful time. I was completely devoted to his care and raising, which, in hindsight, was a mistake. I should have devoted a bit more to my own self, but I grew past that. My life now is one with more purpose than ever before. Preparing a young person to navigate this world, and most importantly, teaching them to live without me, is a daunting mission. But it fills me up with pride and joy to watch my kid growing into an amazing young person, and, also, I am profoundly grateful that I had a choice. TLDR. Never wanted kids, had one at 40. It's tough, but great and I love it. Thank you for sharing this story. Got one age 7. It's interesting to say the least. When they learn to walk, imagine a lemming. It runs straight towards danger and you're waddling after it shouting no no no. They think it's a game. You're trying to catch the slippery little blighter. When they learn to talk, imagine a hyperactive puppy who demands why when you tell them no then does it anyway and cries at the inevitable telling off. When they go to school, I am here. You get some dignity back. Like you have a whole 7 hours to yourself. You can go to the toilet on your own. A featuring that hasn't been achieved in years but comes with a downside. Trying to hide those embarrassing pictures your kid drew of you burning dinner again. Or hearing how little Becky smacked a kid across the chops for dissing Charizard on the playground. There are genuine upsides I hadn't considered. Though, the compliments on what a well-behaved child I usually have, how she can take something she had learned once and then use it in other aspects of her life. Watching an amazing human being form from every experience and getting to proudly say for better or worse that's my kid Monster Angel. I love being a parent, but I'd never have another child. Little Becky better slap that bee twice. Charizard is boss. When I was younger I never ever wanted kids. I hated being around children and they were all for some reason drawn to me and I was absolutely annoyed by them. All of them. My mom growing up always told me not to have kids. She wasn't about to raise another one and that if I got pregnant that we'd take care of it. So, I got older. 25, on our own. Was engaged to my BF of 7 years married now. And we got pregnant. I wasn't upset about it. We'd talked about it and both wanted a child. So it was okay. I was scared to tell my family though. When I did, my mom was excited to be a grandma but not excited for me to be a mom. I loved pregnancy. Everything about it was amazing to me but my mom kept warning me how much work and how hard it was to raise a baby so I just wanted to stay pregnant forever. I was afraid I was going to be a terrible mom. My mom got everything needed for a baby for her house. Note, she smoked forever in the house. So much the walls were yellow and you could peel tar spots off the windows. But it's not something I was concerned about because that's how I was raised. Because she figured she'd be raising or at least always babysitting my child I guess. She thought I'd want not much to do with my baby once I had her. So, I had my baby girl, the nurse, who could smell the smoke on everyone. Also I didn't and don't smoke or drink just so you all know lol. Gave us a huge speech about how terrible first, second and even third hand smoke is for baby. I loved my baby the moment I saw her. She wasn't some object I could just hand over to anybody. When I brought her home, that's where she stayed. I didn't want anyone around us. My husband smoked and drank a lot and I didn't even want him around her. Everyone who smoked became very aware that they were to wash their hands, change the shirts and chew gum if they wanted to hold her. My husband after a lot of fighting quit smoking and sobered up. I was a mom now. To a beautiful child. A child I wanted to be and do the absolute best for and still do. She is my world and changed my world. She has never been in my mother's house because of the smoke. And my mother has never babysat her. I stay at home and we learn and teach each other every day. She changed my life and I am very proud of who I am for her. I love this story. My mom smoked indoors too and growing up I always had terrible bronchitis and sinus infections. We moved to a new home when I was 14. She started smoking outside and I haven't had upper respiratory issues since. Secondhand smoke is more serious than those who smoke realize. Yep, this was me and my wife, too. Whatever it takes, get that babysitter. Time away from your children is just as important as time with them. Being a parent is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. My son is 1 year and 8 months. My face has aged so much within that time it's unbelievable. I love my son to death, he's my priority and would do anything for him, but if I could go back, I would not have children. My wife feels the same. The funny thing is that before you're a parent, everyone tries to warn you but it literally went in one ear and out the other. You don't know how it is until you have one but by then it's too late to go back. The myth of parenthood feels really dangerous. People need to be able to make informed decisions, especially when it's something so monumental and life-changing and irreversible. It's great. I was never against the idea of having children. I just never wanted to have any, but my wife was not budging and she was very interested in having a baby. My child is the best thing that ever happened to me. I definitely don't regret it, although I'm glad I managed to put it off long enough for us to get established a little bit financially. Thanks for this comment. It takes a bit of stress away for me. I'm in the same situation. The baby is due as April. It's going okay. I have an 8-year-old son and twin 2-year-old daughters. I never wanted kids because I feared not being able to function with lack of sleep. I wanted my freedom. I had no desire to change diapers, and I didn't want to deal with the expenses. I had the children mostly because my wife wanted them. My fears came true and more. I lost the freedom. I still despise having to change diapers, and I miss having more money to myself. But what keeps me going is the milestones my children make. Nothing compares to the first steps your child takes, and there are moments that make me feel like it's all worth it. Just the other day, I was home alone with all 3 kids. The twins were napping while my son was nearby, quietly playing. One of the twins just woke up from a nap and needed attention. I was holding her when the other started waking up. I wouldn't have been able to get to her without disturbing the one I was holding. Without being asked, my son comforted the daughter I wasn't holding until I was able to get to her. Everything about the first 2 or 3 years of raising a child is tough, but as an overall trend, every day gets easier. I consider myself lucky that I have a very supportive wife and my kids are generally happy and healthy. To anyone else on the fence about having kids, know that you'll never feel totally prepared to have them. If you're going to do it, it's better to do it while you're younger. You have your strength and can watch them and possibly your grandchildren grow up. I always thought I wanted kids until I had my first. I was never a kid person, but everyone said it'll be different when you have your own. Looking back, I just think I had my son too young. I would have been happy to wait another 5 years. I felt pressured to have a kid at 25-26. Anyway, the first few months were rough and I still don't like kids. I felt more relaxed and happy once I went back to work. My son is 16 months and he is so silly and snuggly. I'm loving this age. I always thought I'd have 2 kids, but I'm fairly certain I won't have any more. So yeah, life is good now and I love my son, but no more babies. Actually, it's pretty good. I never wanted kids until I met my husband. I don't why, but something changed when I was about 24 or 25. I have 2 babies now, almost 3 and almost 1. I am so thankful for them. They are little monsters sometimes, but they are great little people. I love my nieces and nephews too, but other kids, I can do without them. Absolutely a disaster. My career is ruined, life in shambles, single and thousands of dollars in debt with no real possibility of being in the positive for at least 5-10 years. I'm also renting a basement suite from my friend while I just lost my job due to the other parent disappearing again. I also pay child support while I have my kid full time cause I'm waiting for a court date. It's been a living heck for 3 years. I mentioned before that I should be seeing a psychiatrist but can't even afford to walk into the building right now. I also openly talked about an abortion when the pregnancy happened and I realized a type of person that miraculously got pregnant. Pretty much everything that could go wrong for me did. 4 years ago I had a successful up and coming career, couple thousand in the bank, a clear path to where I wanted to be. Now, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to afford life day to day. But the kid, well, this little autistic dude is the end all and be all. While 0% of this disaster is his fault, I love him more than I could ever have imagined. Actually, part of all of it is that I decided to not be an every other weekend parent and a 50/50 parent. Would go to battle for him and his betterment and actually am with all the court appearances and stands I have made to his mother. Overall, disaster now, but hoping all this will be worth it for him and I in the future. Freaking awesome. I never wanted kids. I tried to get a vasectomy at 20 but couldn't find a doctor that would do it, and my first one was a drunken accident. It took a couple of years to fully adjust. I was a highly competitive cyclist and runner as well as having a well-paying job that I had to leave to spend more time with the fam. But after going through that initial adjustment period, everything is great. My daughter, oldest, is like a mini-me, loves going to the gym with me, riding bikes and has a fierce personality while my son is hilarious and sweet. My wife and I still get overwhelmed from time to time, but it's all part of the journey that makes this so exciting, and we've learned to recognize that and enjoy it as part of the process. If I had it to do all over again, I would do everything the same. My daughter is a depot shot baby. Definitely wasn't expecting that and just took a pregnancy test because I found one while moving and thought, hey, why not? I never wanted children. I have a genetic disorder that causes immense amounts of pain, and any children I have a 50% chance of inheriting it. Besides the fact that I will never have a normal life and will keep having surgeries, procedures and lots of pain, I didn't want to give a child my syndrome. It was crappy while I was growing up and I didn't get to be a child in the traditional sense. I always said I didn't get to enjoy my childhood, so I wanted to enjoy the rest of my life without having to care for a tiny human. I planned on having an abortion, but after a lot of discussions I decided not to. I regretted that choice, off and on, up until she was born. But having her was the best thing that ever happened to me. I wouldn't have had a child if it wasn't accidental, but I'm so glad it happened. It was hard. Pregnancy destroyed my body and I'm still dealing with the repercussions of it, but my daughter is so empathetic and understanding of my limitations, and she's only 3. She makes every day bright. When I have surgeries she takes care of me, along with my husband of course. She reminds me to take my medicine, although I never forget to have her. She is just like me, so funny and weird. We had genetic testing conducted for her and she doesn't have my gene mutations. I honestly can't imagine not having her now. Definitely not having any more children, but she is the light of my life. So, overall, it's pretty great. This is exactly my worry. I'm only 19, so not planning on kids anytime soon, but my biggest fear would be passing on my genetic condition and through that, crippling pain. I've never wanted children, but my wife did. We compromised and now have a baby boy. I didn't want him, but he has grown on me. I just now want to make sure he's better adjusted and balanced than I am. Even I can see I'm not very emotionally healthy. It's good that it worked out for you, but it should be noted, if one person does not want children, but the other does, having one child is not a compromise, because one of you had to give up what you wanted. The only compromise in that situation is to end the relationship. It's not as horrible as I'd expected. I had my first and only child at age 37. The biggest difference is all the secrets. There are so many more secrets, it's like living a double life. The old me isn't ready to give up my non-child friendly hobbies, and the new mommy me has to find ways to hide this from both the child and every judging eye from family, to mom and tot groups, and neighbors. For your information, my hobbies are not drug or alcohol related. Even something as simple as playing Fallout 4 or listening to hip-hop gets me ugly looks from the grandparents. Go to be true to yourself. Hiding who you are is going to break you down over time. I hated kids so much all my life. 10 years ago I got married to a wonderful woman. After 8 years we had our son completely unplanned. I'll never forget the day my wife said she was pregnant. I was the happiest dude in the world. Here we are 2 years later and we are getting by pretty decent. Bills get paid, nobody is going hungry, and my son has been the biggest blessing ever. He brings me so much happiness no matter if he's in a good mood or I cut the red wire and he explodes in a tantrum of monumental rage. I love that boy to the ends of the earth and will do my best to give him the life of opportunities I was never given. We are not rich, we don't own a house yet, and we are not dirt poor, but by golly I'm the happiest son of gun I'd ever imagine. 5 weeks in, and it's nowhere near as bad as I thought it would be. Pregnancy was the worst part. I had several complications and felt like my whole body had been taken over by some malevolent parasite. My outlook on having a child ranged from metafric no depending on the hour, for the entire 10 plus months of my pregnancy. And then I was in labor and the midwife told me she could see the head crowning, and suddenly I wanted nothing more than to meet my baby girl face to face. I hate to admit it, but all the people who told me I would fall in insta love with my baby were right. Apparently I have more maternal urges than I thought I did. Life is different now, but not in a bad way. The things I dreaded, diapers, sleep deprivation, PPD, etc., aren't anywhere near as bad as I thought they'd be, and the stuff I thought would be easier, breastfeeding, has been way more complex than expected. Karma made up for my crappy pregnancy by giving me the world's chillest baby, so that helps. She's also cute as heck, which I honestly didn't expect. I've made fun of so many ugly babies in my life. I expected to have a gargoyle as punishment. I'm one and done when it comes to kids, but I am very happy I had her. I love her to bits, and can already tell she's gonna be a great person to know as she grows up. It turned out different than I expected. I never intended to have kids or really thought about it. I guess I never decided to not have kids, but didn't really consider it in my life plans. My wife got pregnant by accident. Well, we weren't that careful, but still, we were young and totally unprepared. I just sort of accepted it as well. Okay, guess I have to do this now. There were some very rough years, and I did experience at least one major emotional crisis, feeling like I missed out on my young adulthood because while my friends were traveling, finding themselves, and generally enjoying their freedom, I was working my butt off trying to provide for me new family I never really meant to have. We had a second because, I don't know, why not? We've already got on. I did the dad stuff, went through the motions, but again, never really was excited about anything. Kinda just did what I felt like I had to do. It got better. Fast forward a many years. Things are going pretty well career-wise and we're living a pretty comfortable typical suburban middle-class life. My kids are now 11 and 8. When they were babies and toddlers, I just didn't see them as people, to be honest. They were just these things that I had to take care. Now they are people, and they are incredible people. They're a little like me, but different in just the right ways. We share interests. We do things together. They amaze me with their innocent views of the world, and they take me back to my youth and the excitement I had about life. I can't wait to see what they do, what they become. I honestly admire them as human beings. I can't imagine going through my life never having met these two amazing human beings. And as for my lost young adulthood, well, I'll be in my early 40s still when they're adults. Plenty of chances to make up for my own lost time, except I'll have a shitload of money to really have fun and experience things. So I guess it'll turn out alright. Semicolon. I dislike being a parent, but I do the best I can. It sucks that I can't pursue my dreams to the extent I had planned. I don't take it out on the kid though. Great. Never better. While I wish I had him when younger, especially when I'm feeling low on energy, but we're much more mature and financially secure for this. Our lives are way healthier now. He wakes up early and we have lots of activities outdoors. One of the best upsides is that it's brought my parents closer to us. Over time we just drifted apart, but now they spend most of their time at our house, and it's sometimes very surreal imagining this was the exact way how my dad played with me more than 35 years ago. I was hesitant to have kids, and our now 2-year-old came right out of the blue. It changed my reality. The day I found out, I had a sort of total acceptance of what is now my life, and I got to the task. We both wanted kids, but not yet. I am fortunate enough to have a partner who can really nail the mom role and be a supportive spouse at the same time. The biggest change was lifestyle. What was once is no more. No more partying. No more trips. No more wasteful spending. We could afford it back then. We're now more frugal, creative and resourceful than ever before. You do get used to it if your personality allows. The one thing I would not change at this point is the freaking feeling of love you have for the child though. I've never been so in love with a human as much as I am my 2-year-old. He pulls on my heartstrings daily. I want the old lifestyle back. That was fun. I can't trade my kid in at this point though. We've adjusted and are happy now. Pretty much crap. I mean, I love my daughter, but my life is pretty much a wreck. I spend most nights tossing and turning, stressed out and depressed. Spend most days on painkillers and or drunk. Don't know how much longer it'll all keep up for. Daughter probably be better long term if I was out of the picture. Please get yourself some help, even if it's just calling the suicide hotlines. If you can't bring yourself to do it for you, do it for your child. Speaking as someone whose mother left me to find her body at 11 years old, the trauma isn't something you truly recover from. I could never decide if I wanted children or not. Neither could my husband. We were happy. Our lives were great. We didn't feel like anything was missing, and yet, I wanted his child. I wanted us to have that together. Sometimes. He admitted he sometimes felt the same, so we decided to cut out the birth control and let nature take its course. If it happened, it happened. 5 years later it happened. The first words out of my mouth when I saw the positive sign on the pregnancy test was, "Oh crap." I knew my idyllic life was about to get flipped upside down. At 4 months I had a miscarriage scare, subchorionic hematoma, and I was torn between feeling sad and relieved. When she was born I did not feel an overwhelming rush of love. Instead I felt a deep, overwhelming sense of duty and responsibility. I would call it a sacred feeling, but I couldn't call it love. Today she's almost 4 and things are good. Our lives did end up changing drastically, some good and some bad, but on the whole we're happy. My husband is every bit the amazing father I knew he would be. I'm an okay mom, I guess. I'm doing my best. If I could go back and do it over I might have her a couple years sooner, but I would still have her. I didn't want children throughout my teens and 20s. I thought all pregnancies were horrible and wanted accidents until about 27 when I learned people actually tried to get pregnant. I was shocked. I got married at 32 and my husband wanted children and we talked about it and decided to do it after much discussion. We started trying when I was 33 and I did not get pregnant. 5 years and a lot of medical interventions later I finally got pregnant through IVF. Our baby was born sick and spent 5 weeks in the NICU. We decided to have a second, and that time my uterus ruptured while I was in labor and I almost died. It has been very traumatic and my body is basically a wreck, but I don't really remember what life was like before now. Things are just normal this way and I'd be horrified to lose either of our children. It's pretty good. It's okay. I got pregnant despite birth control and kept her. She's lovely but parenting is much harder than they make it look. Strange. Very strange. I was very careful about taking my birth control but at the same time I was on migraine medication. And my doctor didn't see fit to tell me that for every 50 mg dose I took, it lowered the effectiveness of my BC by about 25%. I was taking 200 mg. Needless to say, I got pregnant right around our first anniversary. When we confronted the doctor he insisted that he informed us of the risk of the medication, and there was nothing we could do unless we wanted to seek an abortion, something his clinic, a Christian family doctor, did not provide. We immediately switched doctors, but once I heard my baby's heartbeat, an ultrasound to verify the pregnancy, I couldn't go through with an abortion. He was too real. I was horribly depressed the whole pregnancy, and everything that could go wrong did. I was throwing up an average of 5 times a day, and lost more weight than I was gaining. At 6 months I still didn't look pregnant because my body simply wasn't getting nourishment. The morning sickness was so bad. I developed preeclampsia and had to be put on bed rest at 7 months. My mom had to come stay with us so my husband could keep working and my mom could keep an eye on me since the doctor said I was a seizure risk and had to be with someone at all times. In the end I delivered a month early because my liver and kidneys started to shut down. The first few months were hard, and I hated every minute of being a mom. I was sad and miserable and started to retreat inside myself. I wasn't sleeping even when the baby would. I started to have dreams about suicide and would work myself to exhaustion cleaning and doing unnecessary things just to avoid thinking about the baby. My husband was beside himself with worry for me. I never mistreated the baby though. In fact, he was so carefully taken care of him that I was almost paranoid about it. But I didn't feel a connection with him. He was just there. Looking back I had PPD in the worst way, and going back on hormonal birth control only made things worse. Things got better when I got an IUD. My hormones balanced back out, and I felt safer from pregnancy, which was a terror in the back of my head. Then my son learned how to smile. As silly as it sounds, that made a huge difference. He smiled, and he laughed and he started to gain a personality. It didn't happen overnight, but I slowly fell in love with my baby. He's almost 2 now, and my husband and I adore him. He lights up our life. I'm not going to say that I don't sometimes wish that it was still just my husband and I, but we are happy in our own way. That being said, we're never having another wife and I got married in 2003. I was 24 at the time. Didn't want to have kids. Never felt the urge. Wife supported not having kids. Finally came around and confessed to my wife in December 2012 that I wanted a kid. She confessed she always did, but was willing to sacrifice that to be with me. We were older then and my wife had problems conceiving. She always said, we can always adopt, but I was very against it. In the fall of 2015, it became pretty clear that it wasn't happening the normal way. That fall though, I started to come around on adoption, inspired by a family we saw on TV every week who enjoyed a certain form of entertainment we do, and we both would sigh about how we wanted to have that. Wife started talking more about adopting a child out of foster care, and on the 1st of January 2016, I came around and we agreed we'd adopt a teenage girl out of foster care. Took 4 months to get certified to adopt out of our state from foster care, and after so many heartbreaks and caseworkers never getting back to you, we saw this great girl on a TV news segment about adoptions in January 2017. Were chosen for her caseworker a few weeks later, met her in March, moved in April, and officially became our daughter in October. We love her to death, and she loves us, and we genuinely like her, and she us. The three of us have amazing chemistry. On the surface, you'd wonder how long we've been a family, but sometimes there are things about her that wouldn't be if she had been raised by us her entire life. Things we don't foresee changing, like her interest in school academics. Just an example. And because of this, I feel guilty because I didn't want kids for all those years, and if I had changed my mind early on, we could have had our own who would be of similar age to our daughter, but been raised by us her entire life to date. Not to mention that anything that is a reminder that we aren't our daughter's bio parents, even though we now have a birth certificate with our names as parents, hurts us, especially my wife, and then that makes me feel guilty about my previous stance. Just thought I'd share because although our kid wasn't unwanted by us, I didn't want a kid for a long time and we ended up adopting a teen out of foster care. But at times I feel guilt that I didn't come around sooner. On the other hand, I never ever wanted a baby, and we got to skip that. You and your wife are both amazing for giving a wonderful home and family for your foster teen. It can be really hard for kids to be in the foster system, so I can't even imagine what it must have been like to come home to you guys. My son saved my life, but being a single mother is so freaking hard. I wouldn't trade it for the world, and I love my son more than anything, but god dang is it hard. I can't ever seem to grasp the fact that I can't force his dad to be involved in his life or care. My heart is completely shattered for him. I had my son last year in June. He's 7 months old now. I didn't want kids at all. Having a kid seemed like a life sentence I wasn't ready for. His dad and I discussed abortion when I got pregnant, and I talked to my parents and his parents and we decided to keep him. Lol, obviously, he's 7 months old now, but I'm 25 and was really unsure. When I was pregnant I would have panic attacks all the time, severe depression because I was scared I couldn't give him the love he needed or things in life that mattered. Now that I've had him, it's been the best. I don't know if it's because he is such a good baby or too cute, but my life has changed for the better. I work harder, I stopped drinking so much, and I have a love I never thought I would have. His dad and I are in an amazing place, and things just feel right. Before I got pregnant and when I was pregnant, I felt like everything was just on a whim, if that makes sense. Like I had no solid roots, and now I do. He makes me want to be a better me, and dang it for him, I will be the best, even if the best is still mediocre lol. But yeah, my life is pretty great. Recently he stopped sleeping through the night, but he's teething so that will come to an end, hopefully. I'm so exhausted, and coffee is my best friend lol. Thanks for this question. I never really thought about it before and now I'm going to go cuddle Colonel Chunkers, a nickname his aunt gave him cause he's so husky lol. I actually didn't find out I was pregnant until I was over 20 weeks. It's a complicated story, and too late for abortion, so I immediately started looking towards adoption but was eventually talked out of it by so many different people. I had a career I loved that was not child friendly. I had a boyfriend I liked but had never considered settling down with. I had plans to travel the world and do amazing things. All of these things screamed to me that I shouldn't keep this baby. My daughter is 11 now, and is my greatest achievement in life so far. It's also taken years of heck and hard work to get to a place where I don't regret not following my gut instinct. I had to start over with a new career and will always be sad at leaving behind something I was both passionate about and good at. I stayed with the boyfriend for longer than I should have because I really didn't think I could be a parent without him. Gaslighting is a really terrible thing. I had a nervous breakdown when my daughter was 3 from all the stress and feelings of inadequacy that came with my new life. Things got better when I realized that the more I invested in myself and my well-being, the better I could make life for her. That's not to say I stopped putting her needs first, just that I didn't need to be a martyr for her life to be good. I went back to school and got a better job, and didn't sleep for 2 years straight I think. I finally changed the locks to my apartment and called the cops on my ex-boyfriend when broke in. Turns out he never wanted to be a dad, but just thought it would be a good way to keep me. My daughter hasn't seen him in years. I started sharing my favorite things with my daughter and celebrating all of her accomplishments. I found a person who was also trying to make his life better for his kid and married him. It takes years for parenthood to pay off, but we're starting to see our kids moving towards being the smart, adventurous, and generous adults we hope they'll become. We're also planning on taking our girls to travel the world, starting with South America this fall. This is still not the life I expected to have. I've done much less than I intended in a much longer span of time, and it's still hard not to be resentful. Mostly I've learned to just enjoy the small victories and to make goals toward a better future. I freaking hate it. I freaking hate it so much. My child is my world and I really truly refuse to exist in a world where I don't see him all the time, but I miss everything so much. I had to move to another state because my child has a mountain of family in Detroit, and we had none in Denver. I miss my friends, my sleep, my freedom, my diet, my time. I used to be able to do anything I want, and I lost it because a condom broke while we were in a cabin. I never wanted to be a parent. I guess life is fine, but sometimes I just want to take it all back. When I feel like that though, I think about not seeing his smile, and I just bawl my eyes out. I'm stuck. On the one hand, all I want is my old life back, and on the other hand, I can't imagine my life without him. Nosy parents of teenagers, what do you wish you shouldn't have seen? I raised a daughter as a single father. I am not a natural snoop. I try to not be too nosy. The worst part for me was having her around my mom. My mom is more nosy than any 5 people I have ever met. My mom was left alone in my house with just the dog when my daughter was 15. My daughter is now in her mid-20s and I still have not heard the last from my mom about her having 3 different celebs, and therefore is somehow perverted. She hasn't lived at home since she left for college at 18, and I'm still hearing about it. A corn cob won't get her pregnant, hooked on drugs, or hit her up for money, so it's fine by me. My son has a towel for a specific private purpose. It needs to be washed. My mom walked in on me doing a 2-handed lube jerk. The headphones I had on were loud enough to block out the door opening sound, but not her scream. She was more mad at the fact that you were using her lube. My mom found my butt plug tail on the bathroom counter. I had washed it and forgot it in there. She was crying laughing as she threw it at me. Well, at least you'd washed it. As a kid, it seemed like no matter where you hid crap, your mother would find it. I had a nice stash of spank mags when I was a young teen, and decided I would hide them in one of my guitar cases, even behind the guitar. My mother would have absolutely no reason whatsoever to open one of those. She still found them, and acted like she wasn't looking for anything. Ugh. Couldn't imagine tearing my kid's room apart looking for something unless I absolutely had to. This is why people find stashes of pee in the woods. I found a poopy corn cob hidden in the now unused floor vent in the bathroom. I lived with my mom and 4 younger brothers. It doesn't matter whose it was. I'm still wishing I'd never seen that. When we moved house and all the stuff was in the new place, one of the moving guys called me out to double check the receipt, and when we were out of my mom's earshot eyeline, he handed me the herb pipe that had fallen out of the hidey hole in the back of my desk when they were moving it. What a bro. What a badass mover guy. Reminds me of smoking out of a bong in the backyard with my friends during my high school years, and the pool guy came back for the weekly cleaning and saw us. He just said, "Don't worry about me. I was in high school once too." I had a dragon corn cob in a specially made container that looked like a pillow. My mom still found that crap. Schmorman. That was a nasty conversation. Comma is a guy. Not a parent, but a snooping child. Found a box of my mom's corn cobs and lube. In a different drawer. Found a photo of my dad naked in the shower. My dad had died several years prior to my snooping discovery. Not a parent, but the only time my mom ever searched my computer history was 10 minutes after I had googled what quiz are. I was playing a game of Scrabble with my mom and a friend, and one of us played queef. We then got the pleasure of explaining what it was to my mom. She was so excited about the new word she went to work that night and made sure everyone else knew it too. Not a parent, just a dumb mother. My dad once found P, huge dong in girl's butt, doggy, as my desktop wallpaper because I thought it would be better to fap that way. Upvote for efficiency. Not a parent. This happened a couple years ago when I still lived with my mom and stepdad. My stepsister used to live in my room and it had been nearly a year since she moved out. I had a vibrating corn cob that my best friend had bought me as a joke, but not really a joke, for a birthday gift. I used it frequently and I would hide it in the bottom of a drawer in my closet hidden in a hat. My mom decided to snoop and found it but somehow thought it was my stepsister's and kept it. I asked her about it and she was blown away by the fact that I masturbated, but she was going to send the toy in the mail back to my sisty without telling her. Now that would have been a disaster. TLDR. My mom almost sent my dildo to my sister in the mail. Update. I texted her about it and she had the typical response like, "Not my daughter," and yes, I did get it back but soon threw it out because the thought of my mom knowing what I use was too much. Not sure if your mom is a total troll or just really considerate. My mom cleaned my room, totally not to snoop, and found my corn cob and celeb when I was 18. Serves her right. The toys were really well hidden. She had to dig to find them. Also not a parent, but I have a younger brother. I went to his room to search something up on the internet, and he left his tabs open. Apparently he likes Wincest. I wouldn't jump to any conclusions. I keep seeing thumbnails that look good with ridiculous titles. I don't understand why so many of them feel the need to have an incest plot, but I'm not gonna listen to them speak anyway, so. I'm a parent, so one weekend wife and I are chilling out in bed watching whatever garbage on TV, when our youngest son, 11, comes in and says oldest brother, 13, is looking at P on his tablet. So we call for oldest son. He denies and denies, of course, so tell him to bring me his tablet. He hasn't learned the art of incognito browsing or clearing history completely. Going through his history. Well, I'll be damned. He is looking at P. Not just any P though. Some anime stuff. Some adult raunchy stuff. But the real kicker was the Scooby-Doo P. Fred fricking Velma. Shaggy fricking Daphne. Velma doing Daphne. etc. So mom leaves the room to let dad and his son talk about this. Starts with the usual. Don't lie. You can't hide this crap from me if I go through your browsing history. It's okay to masturbate. In private, of course. You're growing up. Yada yada yada. Finish the conversation. Give him his tablet back. But as he's walking out the door, I can't but help do my best worst Scooby impression, but Shaggy followed by zoinks. Jinkies and Raroha found your pee. His face got so red, and I just lost it. I was in tears. Now every so often, when he starts to cop an attitude with us, I just go zoinks to him. Kicker of it all, youngest son comes into the room with "I was only joking. I didn't know he really was." How are there two separate comments about Scooby-Doo P in this thread? I've watched a lot of P in my day and I'll never get Rule 34 stuff. Even beyond that, I don't get how Scooby-Doo is the show mentioned in two separate examples. Weird. My 12-year-old stepson's group chat on his iPhone entitled "Sarah Suck Big Dong." I was cleaning my 7-year-old's room because it was a freaking mess and I was sick of it. I found a collection of apple cores, orange peels and candy wrappers stashed under the bed. Some had been there a long time. Back in high school, my friend Ali's house was right next to our campus. I wasn't allowed to go hang out after school, though. No boys were unless her mother was home. Why? Because mom had walked in on Ali giving a guy fellatio in the basement one day. The only reason I actually know this story is because one day I was there with parental supervision, and when mom has to leave for errands, she said, well, I wish I could leave you guys here alone. But I guess Ali really blew that chance. I have never seen a teenager turn that red. Not a parent, but was preteen at the time the internet was starting to get going. My parents saw my search history after I became confused how physical intimacy worked in homosexual relationships and googled it. That led to some interesting questions. Not a parent, but when my brother was 7 he was complaining of my mom's PC running slow. Out of curiosity I check history in case he downloaded any viruses. Minecraft P was multiple of the searches. Yet wish I was kidding : So I have a bunch of weird sleep issues, and one of them is the ability to hold conversations with people while I am in a deep sleep. I have no memory of the conversations. My mom found out about this when I was a teenager, and apparently she would sneak into my room in the middle of the night and sleep me would dish out all the scoop. Who was having a party? Who I liked? Which of my friends made bad life choices? Everything. She would never punish me for it, but would give advice based on what sleep me confessed. It always confused me on how much she knew about my life. When I'm extra tired or stressed this comes back, and apparently I have had hilarious conversations with my husband. I have just recently discovered that I passed this trait down to my son. Part of me is tempted to get the scoop from my kid, but another part of me wants to respect his personal space. Not a parent, but a witness to their finding something they didn't want to see. Work IT. Guy had his daughter's computer that was having issues opening some photo application and needed it fixed. As we're going through and checking if it worked, yet opened up and presented an image of his daughter, naked, holding a huge corn cob. No words were exchanged. He closed the lid and left. His sweet little angle with a sweet big corn cob. Lol. My son's hentai collection. I need eye bleach. Hentai. He bleach. I once found a sock that would not only stand on its own but could be used to prop a window open. I would have sat the kid down for a conversation, but I don't have kids. I also have an uneven number of socks now. Wait, what? My daughter's boyfriend left his condom wrapper in her bathroom trash can. Twice. It was a Magnum. Both times. I'm very glad they are using double protection. She's also on BC and they were both virgins. But goddamn I hate it. Well, at least he's got a Magnum dong. Typical not a parent. I was helping my recently turned teen cousin with a PC problem. I know his dad has some controls set, so I did a little snooping to see how effective they were. Apparently the kid discovered futanery and hentai. He likes the classics. Black Bible was searched for a lot. Didn't tell his dad, but I did pure all the frick out of my hands. Bible Black, my man. Parents, why do you feel the need to go through your teen stuff? My mom always went through my stuff. I never had anything to hide, but it always made me feel violated, and it made me feel the need to hide stuff from my parents. Even if it was something small like a date or a birthday card from a friend. Let your teens have a safer place in their room where they can keep stuff that they feel is private. If you have any worries about drugs or other things, be honest and open with them. My mum found all kinds of crap when she decided to move my entire freaking room to another room of the house while I was away for the weekend for no goddamn reason whatsoever. Mayo. I imagine you sitting in an old people's home when you're 80 muttering God freaking damn it every time you're reminded of that. Neither of my parents seem to be nosy, but I have had some interesting moments. Like at one point my dad wanted me to look something on the web and saw I had Medina Arabic on the bookmark tab, and, naturally, his first response is, "Are you trying to join ISIS?" I am just really into languages, something that apparently my family finds really weird. I'm not a parent, but on my 16th birthday my girlfriend at the time was over and we were in my room watching a movie, just chillin'. I went downstairs at a point during the night, leaving the GF in the room to get a drink of water. Whilst downstairs, my mother asks me if I had any laundry to be done. This wouldn't be strange for most 16-year-old guys, but I had been doing my own laundry since I was 14 due to my parents regularly being away for days at a time for work. I was confused but just replied, "No, I did some yesterday. I'm checking anyway." So she did. I got my glass of water and one for the GF and started my path back to my room when two shrill screams come from that direction. I ran to the door. My mother storms out, eyes on the ground, and grumbles, "I'm never going into your freaking room again." I enter the room, perplexed, only to find my GF wrapped in a bedsheet on the bed, her clothes strewn on the ground. She had been sat on the edge of the bed with nothing on whatsoever when my mother walked in. The night was ruined and my mother never entered my room again. I am sure she regrets being such a nosy fool. Your freaking room. Accurate. My mom found a thing saying I was bi and confronted me while crying about it and begging me to tell her why I had turned away from God. 6 years later and I'm still so far in the closet I may as well rule Narnia. Also, she found my yaoi stash when I was a frickin' weeb lol. A small bag of herbs stuffed in the bottom of his fleshlight. Wish I had not found my own teenage diary hidden in my teen daughter's room. Not a parent's story, but my piece of crap brother-in-law would try to catch me doing crap. My sister is much older, so I'd stay with them sometimes in the summer when I was a kid. He showed me his new computer and then said don't give anyone my AOL password and just left me alone for a day while they worked. I was 12 with free reign to the internet. He came home with a perverted grin on his fat face. "Did you know I can see what websites you've been to today?" "Oh, I can." He sat down at his computer, fired up the history with a glint in his dead pig eyes and saw 12 hours of activity of me doing two things: reading about animorphs and Star Trek and chatting about animorphs and Star Trek. Not a parent. Went to take a pee in a stall at school. Found a cell phone on the TP dispenser. It didn't have a lock screen. I thought I would search in the contacts for someone the owner spoke to regularly, mom or whoever, to send them a text. Found your son's phone. It'll be with campus security. As soon as I swiped to unlock, it opened to a Google image search result page for vivacious she-males. I wiped the browser history, turned it into security, and went about my day like nothing happened. It was at that moment I realized how numb I was to odd crap. I was not being nosy. Our family shares an Apple Cloud account, and when looking through apps that people had downloaded, I found one about different copulation positions. My oldest kid at the time was around 12. Teenager in my case. I'm always terrified that my parents will go through the various papers I have in my room and find the tests that I didn't do as well as they would have wanted me to do. This is innocent as frick. Not a parent, but my stepdad tracks not only my phone but also my bank account, so almost everything. He tried to track what I do on the computer, but I'm more tech savvy than he is. A friend of mine once set the homepage on his dad's work computer to a P site. You know, those viruses that automatically set themselves. His dad got greeted with a large woman pleasing herself with a zucchini next time he opened his browser. At work, he was not pleased, but the IT guy who had to take care of it must have had a good laugh. Your friend is kind of a little crap. Do that to someone's home computer. Doing that to someone's work computer can make you have to talk to HR and IT and is a pitter for everyone involved. Parents of Reddit, what surprised you most when your child moved out? That's hard. One thing is how much I do miss my kids. I enjoy them not being here, even more once the last one moves out and my mill is gone, but I miss the frick out of them. I was so tired of living in one room. Master bedroom was also my office and I work from home, and I enjoy the extra room, but I hate not stopping by and joking around when I see something weird or funny online, or just grabbing something I know they like when I am at the store and just kind of dropping it by their room as I go past. All those little things are gone now. I hope they realize how much those little things really meant. The other is some of my own personal issues. I want to hear from my kids, but I don't want to bother them, so I don't contact them as often as I would like. I have never been much of a just shoot the crap person, so that hurts me in communications. I see a lot of my dad in me that way. He rarely ever calls me except when there is a death in the family or something. I used to not call him when he worked because I could never remember when it was safe to call. We have one kid. I was cooking recipes for 6 every night thinking that the portion counts were misleading because we never had any leftovers. Nope. Our grocery bills are now about a third of what it used to be. Reminds me of a post I saw years ago from a mom of 3 teenage boys. Said she walked into the den one time and saw her son sitting on the couch eating a head of lettuce like an apple. Just tore off the bag and chowed down. Teenage boys eat a truly stupid amount of food. The moment our son moved out to live on his own, he became vegetarian. He never gave us any indication he was planning to or wanted to be vegetarian. I became a vegetarian within months of moving out of my mom's house. It's just easier when you are cooking for yourself, rather than when someone else is providing meals for you. And honestly, 27 years later, I still don't think my mom understands it, so it would have been a moot point then. I'm the last child to move out. I guess what surprised me was how much my dad cared for his children. Mother told me how he'd cried for days because I could have stayed longer but decided to start my life. Never really dawned on me how much he loves us. That we talk more now that he lives in his own. We seriously play games at least twice a week for 4 to 6 hours. I also realized I was the safe mom that all his friends felt comfortable with. They still called to talk or stop by for a social distanced catch up. I also realized that my water bill was only a 1/4 of what it used to be. I wasn't imagining the super long showers. This was my experience when I moved out. My relationship with my parents actually improved exponentially. Mom here. I was worried that I would be sad and heartbroken. I found out that was not the case. I was excited to see where her path took her. It's amazing to see her making her own world and dreams come true. I now have more money, so I travel a lot more. Absolutely identical to what I was going to say. I am so proud of the man my son is proving to be. It is so exciting to see all the hard work of raising a child come full circle and get to witness how it turns out. On the flip side, my mum told me the first night I moved out, she found my dad sitting downstairs reading my favorite childhood book to himself. I hilariously refused to let anyone read me that book. That was mine and dad's book up until I was about 6. Then I just read by myself. After all the emotional verbal abuse he dealt throughout my life, I was surprised he cared enough to miss me. This comment started off well. My mom said the most surprising thing to her is all the meals she used to cook for us that I hated. I now request those same meals frequently. LOL. I keep telling my daughter that she is going to miss my chicken soup one day. How many kitchen utensils you actually need to make basic meals? I'm sorry mom. I will never make fun of your crowded cupboards again. 3 of my kids, bio and spiritual, moved in together a little over a year ago. For Christmas I gave them a garlic press, a good spatula turner, a set of silicone scrapers, and tongs. We opened presents together over video chat. When the tongs came out, all 3 of them went motherfucking tongs score. Just how much I still miss living with him, even though he's been settled out of home for a few years now after yoiling a bit. Honestly, I feel like my dad for sure misses me more than my mom. He wasn't really one to say I love you or I am proud of you, but now he's always hugging me and telling me he loves me, all types of stuff. He loves you because you're his favorite roast beef. The quiet. The house is normally quiet, but this was extra. It's hard to explain, but it doesn't matter now, because after 4 months he moved back home. I've had all our 3 children move out, and a couple of things come to mind. It's an instant pay rise. God knows I love them. But even when they have been working and contributing to the household, me and my wife have still fronted most of the bills and purchases. Going from providing for a family of 5 to just me and the wife. Let's just say we eat better cuts of meat and our savings accounts have never been healthier. When they move out, they also take a step towards adulthood, which means our relationship also changes for the better. We can't take a step away from parent-child relationship to 2 people who love and respect each other, and we can talk about many issues much more as equals now. They have their own thoughtful opinions on many topics, and I love having these discussions because more often than not they'll surprise me with a different perspective and make me rethink my own opinions. The possibility to spend much more time with my wife, which wasn't a surprise, but to sort of rediscover her as the amazing individual I once fell in love with. I never lost sight of it, but the roles of mother and father took up so much of our time, so our we time had always been on the back burner. I know I haven't worded this very clearly, but I hope you get what I mean. That I would worry so much about them when I no longer see them every day. For sure, I call them often and we talk, but we don't see much of each other these days, for obvious reasons. We have 4 kids. When the first one left, I was surprised at how much the whole dynamic of the house changed. Don't know how to explain it, just a different vibe. Also, we did a pretty good job of having dinner together as a family nearly every night. So, of course, everyone had their place at the table and that never changed. For a few months after the first one moved out, sometimes I'd look to the other end of the table and my wife would be spontaneously crying as she looked at the empty spot next to her. Don't worry, we're doing better now. Lastly, this can be quite emotional for some parents because in some ways they are almost having a funeral for the child. Once that kid moves out, there can be a little mourning of the death of a child because that child is never coming back. When they visit again they are an adult. And by saying this I certainly don't want to trivialize the trauma folks experience at the actual death of a child. This isn't nearly as hard, not even in the same universe of difficulty. How much we miss our daily interactions, even when they were just 15 minutes long. Before our oldest children moved out, 2 to go, they were hardly home. Between college, study groups, working and social activities, on most days we'd see them just before bed and just after they woke up. Now that they're out on their own, we really miss even those daily check-ins. We still call and text a lot, but obviously it isn't the same. I get that your children aren't given to you, they're loaned to you. But dang if it doesn't feel like a part of you has been amputated. Answering on their behalf just a joke, they now have to take out the trash and do grocery shopping themselves. Plus they have to get off their seats to get a cup of water. I was the youngest of 3 and moved out with my sister. My mom kept going on about how excited she was to be free. 2 months and she adopted a cat that looked exactly like mine. I still call her once a week to make sure she isn't too lonely. How quickly they pick things up. I don't mean that literally. I think I thought my daughter would be a potato for much longer than she was. A potato and happy cake day. I never realized how much my parents relied on my rent. Every month I have to come up with a different excuse so they'll still take it. This doesn't seem right. There is a lot of expenses that come with starting a life as a young adult. Unless your parents are disabled or elderly, they are doing you a disservice by not allowing you to save for your own future. You will have time to take care of them later. When I moved out, I moved countries too, so I was gone. I got a pitiful phone call from my parents. They begged me to return. My dad said he needed someone to talk to. Basically he wanted his free therapist back and needed someone to give him back massages. He historically had back problems and my mom is crap at massaging sore muscles without leaving bruises. My mom begged me to come back and take over parenting, cooking and cleaning again, saying that she was too old. It made me feel very used. I hadn't realized how much I had been doing for them. It was especially manipulative when my mom put my baby sister on and she cried and asked why I didn't love her anymore and told me about how my mom wasn't taking care of her and just ignored her needs. She was 4. None of that is your responsibility or your fault. Stay strong and don't let that negativity influence you. The crushing pain. Never for a minute did I expect it. Watched him drive away with his friend, car all packed up to move into an apartment together, and burst into tears. Went up to his room to vacuum and sob. Grieved for 2 weeks. He moved across town. Then as the years went by, he came back, moved back out, came back again, moved back out again. The last time he moved, he went 2,000 miles away, or 3-hour plane ride. I'll never get over it. We're damned happy for him to be living a full life on his own terms, but had no idea it wouldn't include us in any way. I just never saw that future in my little crystal ball. We were always supportive, Do your own thing. Whatever it is, we'll support your choices, and still feel that way, but I had no idea what the physical pain of him being out of our daily lives would be. What can I say, he's a sparkler, and our lives are simply dull without him. My mum got upset when I moved 5 hours away to Los Angeles for college, then really upset when I moved to Australia. I still spoke to her every day. LOL, she passed away a couple years ago and I live in the UK now. I assume she's in heaven stomping her foot at me for moving far away again. That he never called his mother for 3 weeks. She was crushed. She loves her babies even at age 22. We still have 3 at home, thank goodness. Amusingly, my father specifically told me not to call my mother the first 3 weeks I was away at school. It was a good move. She got over the worrying phase. I felt some independence and then had a nice talk with my mum. My best friend found half of their dishes hidden in their son's closet. They were dirty and disgusting. They knew dishes were going missing and had asked him dozens of times if he had them, but he always denied it. He wasn't mean or rotten, just lazy and goofy. OMG, that's my nephew. That her boyfriend continued to live here. When my daughter went back to college, her boyfriend had already been staying here for a few months. His dad had died and his mom had to move into a much smaller place, so he moved in with us. When my daughter went back to her dorm, he stayed and continued to commute to his college. It was temporary and he's a good guy, so it wasn't too bad, just unexpected. My parents have reported most of the same: sad, quiet, lonely, cheaper food bill, etc. But once my brother moved back in for a while in his early 20s and my mom said she missed being able to go downstairs and get coffee in the morning without putting clothes on. All the stuff he had, I don't know where he got thousands of dollars worth of cameras, tablets, laptops, and other expensive things. He never had a traditional employer. When we saw all the stuff, we thought he got into drugs or stealing or something. My dad thought the same thing about me. How similar it feels to starting your life over after a breakup or graduating from college, and then the immense sadness you feel when they ask to move back in because the $150,000 liberal arts degree you bought them won't let them actually make a living. Nowadays I feel like IT and medical fields are the only college degrees with a good ROI. Any other degree you better either be getting for free or at severely discounted prices. My parents begged me to move home because they wanted to have a full house again. When COVID hit, they got their wish. They seem to forget their kids and children anymore and that we don't have to ask permission to come and go or to spend time somewhere that isn't home. I mean, it is COVID. It's respectful to at least have a conversation about what everyone is comfortable with. I'm in my 20s and live at home. Sometimes I need to social distance, sometimes I can stay over at my boyfriend's. I don't want to put any of my family members through COVID nor make them uncomfortable in their own house. Bless all the people here that actually care about their kids. I've tried so hard to have any kind of closeness with my parents even after all the abuse. I feel just as alone now as I did then, and it sucks. I don't think they acted the way they did because they don't love me. I think maybe they are just incapable because they seem to have really bad mental health issues. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to help them, but I am only one person and I couldn't take it anymore. Please, if you can do so safely, hug your kids or parents and tell them you love them. These bonds are not replaceable. I can't begin to imagine what you've gone through. I know it's easy to say and hard to do, but stay strong. It isn't your responsibility to help them and I'm sure they love you, even if they find it hard to show it. I'm 21 and moved out a little over a year ago. Reading this thread has freaking punched me in the gut. I remember my mom telling me about how my dad said he missed me, but I can't imagine what that man was feeling. I wasn't super close with my mom, but I spent my entire life doing everything with my dad. He was my best friend until I was old enough to make different friends. I should really go home and visit more often. I'm the child in this case. My mum was surprised by how domesticated I was right off the bat. To be fair, the crippling depression and hospital admission prior to moving out did make my mum wonder if I would cope. Mostly I have managed well. She still supports me with managing finances because of my mental health and dyscalculia, but this month will be 5 years since I last officially lived with her, not including the fact that she was my lockdown support this last year and I was spending 3 days at a time with her. We both live alone, so it was allowed. And 15 years since I first moved out. Till about dyscalculia. It makes sense that it exists, but I have never really heard about it. How much I missed them. I was a single parent of 3 boys and have a small social circle intentionally. It was hard to do, but when we get together now I am continually amazed at how they've turned into intelligent, caring and moral human beings. I recently visited my oldest too with the intention to purchase a car in his area and was so much more excited about seeing them than getting the car. The oldest is purchasing a house in the next 2 years and asked if I wanted to live with him. I agreed on the condition that I have a mother-in-law suite to ensure his privacy since he is single. I think they worry about me because I am so independent and live my life alone. My mom told me she didn't know I can cook. I never cooked at home cause granddad would always complain about my cooking. He doesn't like modern cooking, and I found it annoying, so I never cooked when someone was around. When they came to visit I made STHG every time and they were so surprised and still are every time. Echoing many others, the lonely quiet. I spent so much of my life immersed in my kids that when they moved out, I was lost. I am still lost, but getting a little better at it. COVID hit hard at a time when I really could have used getting out and building something new in my life. How seldom he initiates communication with us. I'd either thought he'd have a lot more questions about things, but I guess he learned how to live his life on his own. Okay, who's cutting up onions? He's 6, so the fact that he moved out was a huge shocker. He came back in about 15 minutes for a snack and to watch TV and cuddle. That part wasn't surprising, not in the least. The electrical tape used to depress the plungers on the alarm of the back door, so they could come and go without alarm beeping when door opened. I remember my mom being surprised at how many dishes my dad left out. She had always assumed that it was me. I'm very good about that. It's one thing that frustrates me about my wife. Dishes everywhere. I cried for an entire year. 2020, when my 19-year-old son moved away. I still have 3 children at home. I'm not even an empty nester, so I'm thinking of what I need to do not to fall apart when they all move away. My youngest is 7. All I know is I completely underestimated how much I'd miss him and thought the day was far more into the future that I wouldn't see him daily. It took me a stupid amount of time to adjust to setting the table to 5 instead of 6. To adjust our menu to not account for his favorite meals that our other 3 children don't care for. Just too many little details of daily life with him just gone. I miss our daily mellow conversations about the world and various topics and finding out more about him. He visits, but I miss him all of the time. Ugh. A large amount of pride tinged with sadness when she moved out. She has stayed with friends before, but recently she and her boyfriend got their first apartment together. I am so proud of her that she has all grown up with her own apartment, but a little sad too because it will never be the 3 of us again. But her dad and I have been enjoying some kid-free time just like before she was born, so that is a lot of fun. It is kind of a big emotional soup, but overall a very positive one. How much my kids truly like and love me. They keep in contact all the time and find any excuse to come over and hang out with me. I figured they would just go on their own lives and leave me behind. Guess I did a good job. That I could get naughty whenever I wanted, haha. And also the laundry and dishes, my god, those pesky kids had some washing to be done. My mom told me, only child, that the best time in her life was when we lived together after she divorced my abusive stepdad. It was really bittersweet. I guess she felt like she'd kind of squandered my childhood time until I was nearly old enough to move out, and she just never imagined I actually would be gone one day. Or maybe that she thought the toxic situation would resolve itself and then our lives would start as mother and daughter. How the kitchen remained clean. The quiet, and especially how the complaints went down about me walking around in my underwear. I mean, covered in pants. Yeah, not going to bother while working from home. Not a parent but talking to my recently, she says she gets bored after 30 years of having kids in the house. She also says it's too quiet. How the temperature miraculously stayed the same, 24/7. How far I could make groceries stretch. How filthy, son, the bedroom is. How eerily quiet it was. How much room I had in that house. Serious, parents of really smart kids who never really went anywhere in life, what advice would you pass on to similar young people now? There have been studies that link high intelligence with a greater risk of developing mental health conditions. Being aware of that and knowing the signs can mean you get help a lot faster, hopefully before mental health issues start to have life-changing effects and derail plans and ambitions. Great point. And to add on to this, no matter who you are, don't hesitate to get help if you feel like you need it. People nowadays, I'm guilty as well, either just deal with it and eventually numb themselves into a rut or put more stress on themselves by thinking nothing is wrong with me while continuing to deal with obvious symptoms of a disorder. Please know that some people, albeit smarter than average, don't have a calling. It's okay to settle for a decent job that you don't hate and pursue your other interests on the way. My daughter is exceptionally intelligent, was invited to join Mensa. We decided against it but come into contact with other parents' gifted children and have seen several go off the rails. A. Don't keep telling your child they're extraordinary. They're not. All you're doing is feeding their ego, which can lead to them being lazy or creating impossible standards that they feel they can never achieve. I've seen so many of these kids get behind in their studies and drop out because they think they're above it all, and at least half of them suffer from severe anxiety disorders, my daughter included. B. Let them live. Not all kids wants to spend 8 hours a day playing the violin. Not all kids wants to do 6 hours of homework a night. Allow them hobbies that aren't related to furthering their education, but are purely for enjoyment. C. Let them manage their own time. They don't need their parents micromanaging every second of their life. D. Let them have friends that they choose. Let them socialize and spend their weekends doing things they enjoy. No kid wants to have friends handpicked by their parents because they're their equals. They want friends that they can have fun with. Who cares if their friends aren't Mensa candidates? If you're so obsessed with other children's IQs you need to see a professional immediately, that's creepy. E. Teach your child failure in a supportive environment. They will still have struggles in their learning, and it can be a shock when they find a subject they don't naturally excel at. When their self-identity is based around being super smart, it can be devastating to fail at something. Teach your kid that it's absolutely okay to not be a genius at everything and teach them to laugh when things go wrong. Last year a student we knew committed suicide because she failed a maths test for the first time ever. F. Be prepared. Some kids are exceptional until they're not. They grow up, the other kids catch up, and they're suddenly just average. This is why it's so important to raise your child well-rounded. G. Get a life. No, seriously. Don't live vicariously through your kid. Your kid's achievements are not yours. Your kid is intelligent through genes, not your parenting. It's okay to be proud of your kid's achievements, but it's not okay to find self-validation through their achievements. Your kid is a person, not an extension of you. H. Finally, be aware that your kid may not want to be the person you envision for them. Telling your kid they're going to be a surgeon doesn't make them want to be a surgeon. They may want to be a musician, or an artist, or a chef, or work in retail, or work in a bar, and that's their choice. You give your kids the tools to survive. It's up to them how they utilize them. Be proud of whatever path they take. Jesus Christ. It's like my parents traveled from the 80s to today, saw this comment, and said frick that guy, let's do all the opposite things. Except the Mensa thing. My dad was in Mensa. He was adamant against my joining the Mensa Honor Society. Don't ever believe you are too good to keep learning. There's always new things to learn even if you don't feel challenged by what you're doing right now, in school, or wherever. It doesn't matter what it is. Keep learning. I always hear on Reddit that kids who are seen as smart when young then find they level out among their peers as they get older find it because they've learned to coast on their talent, aka they didn't learn how to learn, and put in the work study practice. Help them set up good study habits. Yep, I can relate here. School was easy till college. On a roll. Barely had to study. Then pharmacy school. Holy crap. I nearly failed out 3 times because I had no idea how to take in all that information. Don't coast on your smarts. People get ahead by working hard and being good with people, not by doing the bare minimum to get by. Mine wouldn't be to the kids, it would be to the parents. Learning is a lifelong venture. It never stops. Don't burn your kid out when they're learning about complex emotions, social interactions, their place in the world. Guide them towards wisdom, not just knowledge. Also, kindness matters. This is amazing advice, coming from a kid who went through burnout. Stop telling kids they are smart. Credit their hard work. I remember absolutely giving up after struggling with advanced algebra. It was my first learning barrier and I was in 9th grade. I knew I wasn't as smart as people said because I was failing. Truth is, I became a stats major in my PhD program. I am really good at math. I just attributed it to natural talent, not work ethic. It took a very long time to accept that having to work hard is not a sign of being stupid. Having to work hard is not a sign of being stupid. I wish someone had told me this in high school. Stop overthinking everything. Stop second guessing your decisions. Stop comparing yourself to others. In the end, you're only battling yourself. If you have multiple children, don't pressure the smart one to be the one who does it all. Not only are you hurting the other ones for being normal probably, but you're putting unnecessary pressure on the other ones. In my case, my 2 older siblings were normal. However, when I was in 2nd grade I was labeled as gifted and thrown in a magnet class. My mom put all the pressure on me since I was a golden child who was going to get a good job, be rich, and support our family and retire. My mom, she didn't care about my other siblings, so they stopped trying altogether. Older sister dropped out, brother failed all of high school and had to take multiple classes at a special center to get his diploma. But she didn't really care because she had me as her backup plan. And then in high school I found out I wasn't special, and with crippling depression from all the pressure, I struggled to get the help I needed. So yeah, don't do that crap. Treat all your kids the same and give them the help they need if one is struggling. Be careful about what going somewhere in life means. I grew up with a very professionally successful mother who was also stressed and unhappy a fair amount of the time because of the pressure put on her at work. For some people it's money, for others it's prestige, but every ladder climber has something that pushes them higher and higher up. Some people end up at the top and get enjoy the view, but a lot of people don't. So I wouldn't worry too much about not going anywhere in life, so long as your kid ends up with a life they enjoy. And if you're the one asking for advice, I'd say figure out what you enjoy doing. Might be a career, might be a hobby, might just be a daily routine. A lot of people know and live by the phrase do what you love what you do, but way too many of them think do means what they do for work. Loving music doesn't necessarily mean making music a career, nor does loving computers mean you must go into IT. I have a friend who is a full-time working musician who does engineering projects on the side. He's in a band with a full-time teacher who does music on the side. Both enjoying life to the same amount and with similar activities, just with different perspectives on what makes them happy. Challenge yourself. Everything is easy for you until it's not. Then it becomes seemingly impossible because you never acquired the tools necessary to overcome those challenges. So do what you can to make learning hard. It's hard for everyone else, and you need to experience that too. Best way to do this is to have creative, productive outlets which allow your ambition to force you to expand your abilities. Not coasting on smarts is a common theme in this thread. On that note, advice for the parents would be don't praise your kids' intelligence too much. I'm not saying don't praise them at all, but my parents constantly told me how smart I was, and my dad's send off for the day was show them how smart you are. I did that and got a big head about my intelligence. That was fine until college when I needed to do work but had never studied, rarely did homework, and realized I hadn't completely mastered concepts from high school because I never applied them. So, you can tell your kids they are smart but emphasize hard work more than pure intelligence. Everything in this post is so relatable except the part where your dad said you were smart. With me it was classmates. Being smart is not a replacement for working hard. Smart kids can become stupid adults if they don't work hard, but dumb kids can become smart adults if they do. Developing a healthy work ethic is arguably the most important factor in education. I skipped grades till I was just an average student, but I was smaller, younger, more immature. I had no friends in my grade, never had a girlfriend. I ended up suffering and falling behind as a lonely misfit. I should have stayed put and just been a genius instead of skipping grades. Skipping grades is not good for students most of the time, unless it is in the first few years of education. Most kids will have very little way to connect with others. There is no substitute for doing the work. Whether you call it chop wood, carry water, or work ethic, or self-discipline, or any other terminology, choose a term that doesn't grate on you and learn how to do the work. Because there are plenty of brilliant young people, you just haven't met enough of them yet. And what happens is that brilliance attracts brilliance. The further you go with your smarts, the more and more the peer group narrows until eventually you're not a big fish in a little pond anymore, able to create wow effects just by being smart. You're the same size fish as everyone else around you. The day you realize you're not the smartest person in the room anymore can be a day of despair, because you always relied on talent and didn't have to learn things like good study and health habits or other forms of chop wood, carry water. And now the kids who are naturally talented and learned how to work hard at what they want are going to accelerate beyond you. Or it can be a day of sheer exhilaration, because you finally found your peer group and you can now all spur each other on to excellence, and there's no feeling like that in the world. You have the power now to choose which one it's going to be, by learning how to do the hard, smelly, no good, boring, crappy hard work all the treheads are out there doing. As a smart person, never discount hard workers. They will outwork you almost every time. And if they are both smart and a hard worker, well, they'll hand your butt to you and make it look easy. Be the smart person with the edge of also knowing how to do the hard work. It's the only thing that will set you apart from the other naturally smart or talented people once you're in the big pond with them. Whether that's medical school, law school, world-class art school, a certain level of your career, or any other goal you want to achieve, never coast on smarts. Learn how to work hard, and it will set you apart from the smart ones who coast. Or you risk finding something you want, you really want, that is just on the edge or outside of your zone. But because you never learned how to work for what you want, you'll lose it. And there's almost no feeling as bad as that, even the death of a loved one. And besides, no one likes a lazy smart person. People hate that guy or gal. And yes, they can see through it. Don't be that guy. Commit to being worthy of your natural smarts by also learning how to do the work. Many people describe me as a smart person, but I feel like there's no reason I should get extra respect for my natural talent. I know people who are incredibly hard workers who I think should honestly be respected more than people who just get stuff naturally. I work somewhat hard, but nowhere near the level that some do. As a former smart kid who is possibly not living up to my potential, my advice is, it's okay to not be exceptional. Find out what makes you happy. You don't have to achieve great things just because you are gifted. It's totally okay to work a mediocre job that isn't your life's passion if that job gives you something else THST makes you happy. I've figured out what makes me mostly happy in life. Time with my family. I have a fairly well-paid, low-stress job with great work-life balance. I'm working part-time to spend time with my daughter while she's young. I've taken some big trips with my husband and I'm planning more. I have time and energy to pursue my hobbies. Took me a while to realize I'm not actually ambitious on the career front. I might well one day go and get a higher degree or go into research, or I might not. I'll never be rich, but I'm not struggling either. My advice would be for the parents. I was a smart kid and my parents put so much pressure on me I crumbled. I wound up not going to college because after high school I had enough. I was burnt out from my parents forcing me to study every free moment. I was burnt because I hated doing all of the after school activities because they would look good when I applied to college. Just because your kid is smart, don't pressure them all the time. Let them have some free time and realize the occasional B on a test is not the end of the world. My parents meant well and I love them. but they really did me no favors by pushing me in the direction they wanted for me. At 37 years old, none of what I did in school matters now and I can support myself just fine. Well, my really smart kid is working on finishing her degree in teaching. According to the way our state education system is, she was officially listed as profoundly gifted. I spent all of her years in the school system fighting to get her what she needed. Part of the following shouldn't just be for really smart kids. It should be for all kids. There is a huge difference between intellectual growth and psychological social growth. Regardless of the intellectual capacity, kids deserve to be kids. What's more, they need it. Yes, darling daughter was reading on a college level in elementary school, but she was still just a kid who was figuring out the world. When we reached high school, many administrators said to me, "Oh, you want her to graduate early," to which I always gave the same response. "So you're saying she doesn't deserve a senior prom?" Do not underestimate the importance psychologically and socially of all those normal kid things. Think back to your own early years. What do you remember as the best parts? They deserve that too. Encourage their interests. It doesn't matter what that interest is. Run with it. Boredom is a big thing with gifted children, and that's when chaos happens. Consistently encourage and praise hard work. There's easy subjects for gifted kids. I'm not saying those don't deserve a little praise, but adult life isn't about what comes easy. It's about putting in the hard work. The more you encourage and praise it early on, the more likely they are to have those traits as adults. Have real conversations with your kids every day. Pay attention to what they are doing in school. Pay attention to their interactions with peers. Don't hand them the answers. Help them to have the tools to answer them themselves. Encourage thought and reason. Teach them to see the options available. As a former smart kid, who never really went anywhere in life, for my fellow underachievers I have only this to say: it's okay, other people can go frick themselves. Find something you're good at and you can do with sickening ease. You're smart. You'll figure it out. And ride that motherfucking easy mode to the grave. You don't owe this crappy world, its crappy people, or even yourself not a goddamn thing. If you are experiencing anxiety, you are not alone. Anxiety, especially related to perfectionism, is extremely common among high-achieving people. Source: I'm not a parent, but I wish I had known this earlier. What's this went nowhere in life nonsense? The idea that someone who excels in some way is required to achieve great things is ridiculous. What's wrong with just being happy with yourself? Don't squander your best years. It's easy to get out of high school, which, let's be real, grades and performance don't matter that much in high school in the grand scheme, and then just flop into college and fail cause you don't know how to apply yourself and you don't know how to learn to develop a hobby for yourself, completely separate from your end goal. Wanna be a programmer? Try picking up painting. Find some things that really get you out of bed on the daily. Become a multifaceted person. Learn skills and never stop learning. I'm actually the kid who just coasted through some college classes and stalled big time trying to get a job for a few years. Eventually I got scared of staying like that and learned some new marketable skills. Got motivated to find a proper career to help fund a life where I could partake in and expand upon the hobbies I want to have in my life. Life is what you make of it. Crap in, crap out. If you want to get good outcomes, you have to put in good effort to make it happen. If you're a smart kid, that can usually come pretty easy to you. As the really smart kid who went nowhere, I'd like to actually pass on advice to the parents. Don't be so overbearing if you know your kid is smart and want to see them succeed. Support their success. Don't want their success. When it came to going to college, I didn't have the money, so my parents offered to help pay. The catch being that it only applied to certain highly accredited schools that would look good on a resume. I made it into one of said schools, with the catch now being that my major had to be profitable. So they essentially cut out all the arts stuff I found enjoyable and would have liked to do, because success there is sketchy at best. So my parents suggested I go for mathematics as it was something I excelled in, but something I didn't really care for. I hated it. It was just the feeling of living for someone else instead of yourself. Advice to the kids: just go for it. I know I personally tend to overthink things and talk myself out of doing something using the negative outcomes. But if you never go for it, you'll also miss out on all of the positives. Get checked for ADHD. Seriously, so many intelligent to highly intelligent people who never finish college, have a hard time maintaining jobs, or just can't seem to get it together have undiagnosed ADHD. The struggle is real and medicine like Vyvanse or similar can really help you get control. I'm not the parent, but I am the kid who didn't go anywhere. I'm about to pat myself on the back, but it's not about bragging. I promise. I didn't get the best grades in high school, but I was always told that I had a brilliant mind and that I would go places. The problem was, I had no drive back then, no idea what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Who does at 18? It didn't help nobody in my family went to college, so I had nobody to guide or encourage me. However, 2 years ago I met a recent college graduate who was floored that I didn't have any higher education. She said the same thing. "You're so smart, how can you not?" So, with her help, I enrolled into community college. This past July, I graduated CM Lord with my Associate of Science in Liberal Arts and Science. This fall, I transferred into a 4-year school to pursue my Bachelor's of Arts in History and Anthropology with a minor in Chinese. Today, I turn 28 years old. It is never too late to follow your dreams or pursue an education. I have had classmates who are much older than I am, still after the pursuit of knowledge and bettering themselves. My advice is to never sell yourself short, because it is never too late. Also, on mobile, so sorry for any formatting errors. Being an exceptionally smart kid, aka never studied for a test until senior year of high school yet maintained at least a 96 average, it would be to make sure the kid knows how to study. I'm currently in my last year of college and have really struggled because I never had to study for tests. I still struggle with it and went from a 3.9 GPA in HS to a 2.9 in college since the classes I take are difficult and really do require self-learning, which I was never shown how to do. Also, I feel teaching a child to ask questions would be really important because I was too stubborn to ask for help, especially when I first realized it was getting difficult. Make sure that they know learning and understanding is more important than their pride as the smart kid or anything like that. There's only one trap that smart kids fall into, and only one way out of it. They have a very easy time in elementary school, and it earns them a lot of praise. If something is too hard for them, they just don't try, because they aren't going to get that immediate hit of praise for it. They eventually just never learn to try hard at things they aren't good at. Once high school comes along, the kids who have been working hard are fine. They are used to this. Smart kids are not. They might skate by, but then college comes and they aren't getting any praise for being intelligent. No one cares. They lose heart and give up. Find something that is very difficult for you. Praise is not your friend. Hard work is your friend. Success is not your friend. Failing and trying again is your friend. Sincere, sustained effort is your friend. Humility is your friend. I'm gonna play some hard video games then, but for real, thank you. This applies to me a lot. I used to be actually pretty smart in elementary, but I just find out I'm just above average probably, or even marginally. That hit me like a truck. Thank you for helping a fellow. Being an Asian kid exposed to tiger parents my whole life, I wish I could tell all those tiger moms and dads. 1. Your kid will not make it to Harvard. Stop comparing colleges, rankings, SAS scores, etc. around your kid. It only adds to their anxiety. 2. For God's sake, let your kid have fun, play video games, watch TV, hang out with friends, etc. This teaches them how to balance work and life. I had many friends in college who never had fun in high school and ended up watching TV all day in their dorm because they didn't know how to manage their newfound freedom. They ended up getting kicked out of college. 3. Your kid is not defined by his or her SAS score. Most Asian parents grew up in a place where one exam score determined the rest of their lives. But the Western world is different. If you move to a place like America, don't parent in the past. Adapt and learn. 4. Help your child develop proper social skills, not just technical skills like piano or ping pong. Social skills will matter more in life than any award in piano. When a friend comes over to play, let them hang out, even if it means sacrificing practice time. Those are the 4 main reasons why I've seen Asian American kids rebel, get depressed, and or fail when thrown in an independent environment. When I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand life. J. Lennon. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.